Chapter 10:18. This group of dead souls was no longer satisfied with catching two small fishes. They were going to send people into the underworld on a large scale. And the first batch of targets were the Demonic Academy and Celestial Fortress. Damn it, these guys. Lu Chen's eyes were already burning with anger. Nameless, calm down first. My illusion can't hold on any longer. There's still time. Let's take advantage of the chaos and retreat. Li Wei pulled Lu Chen back. Ironwood also said, they said it will only start in 15 days. We still have time. Let's retreat first. Although Lu Chen was furious, he knew that rushing out now would be courting death, so he could only turn around and lead the team out of the city of dead souls. Everyone temporarily set up camp in the forest far away from the city of dead souls. Originally, everyone had planned to return and report the news, but who would have thought that the two entrances to the Netherworld on Prosperous Source Continent and Azurepon Continent would be heavily guarded by the Netherworld army? It seemed that they had been deployed to receive their messengers. This put Lu Chen's team in a dilemma. Helpless, they retreated back into the forest. After staying here for a day, they realized that there was also a day and night difference here, but it was not as obvious as in the Yang world. The time of day here corresponded to the time of night in the Yang world. The sky was redder and brighter, but it turned dark red at night. On the third day, before Lu Chen and the rest could come up with a solution, Guangxi, who was in charge of security, rushed back. Not good. There's an army of the dead searching this forest. I took a look. It doesn't seem to be the army of the dead from the city of dead souls. Their clothes are different, and when they meet the city of dead souls troops on the road, they would go forward to confirm. Not good. It seems that the 6-star Great Spectral Cultivator that we killed previously used some method to expose our whereabouts. At this time, everyone was in a very dangerous situation. Everyone, let's move first. Just as Lu Chen finished speaking, the ground began to shake. Across the forest, Lu Chen could see a huge Cerberus charging towards them. Over there, men, follow it quickly. Someone behind the Cerberus shouted. Not good, they can find us. Retreat quickly. Lu Chen shouted in a low voice, and everyone hurriedly moved. Li Wei casually set up a fox demon illusion, but the hellhound did not fall for it all. It charged straight at them. Damn it, I can't shake him off. Li Wei had no choice but to retreat quickly. The hellhound rampaged through the forest, breaking the trees. No matter how these people tried to escape, they were unable to shake it off. Seeing that Cerberus was getting closer and closer to them, Guangxi suddenly stopped. Boss, Nameless, you guys go first. Second brother, you can't stay. Omen grabbed Guangxi's arm tightly. Guangxi pushed Omen away. Lao San, you must save Linger. I have no children. She's my daughter. Now is not the time to dawdle. For the sake of Linger, hurry and leave. With that, Guangxi charged towards the Cerberus. Bastard, let me have a go at you. Second brother. Omen's eyes widened in anger. Seeing this, Ironwood quickly pulled Omen back. It's too late. Hurry and leave. Not long after, sounds of fighting came from behind. However, there were too many of them. Guangxi did not have the chance to block the hellhound before he was surrounded by the other army of the dead. That hellhound is coming again. It seemed that it was impossible for one person to block the hellhound. Ironwood, Agarwood, and the rest all stopped. Omen, we will block them. Nameless, we beg you. You must help second brother save Linger. We watched that child grow up. She has unlimited potential and is much more useful than us old guys. Nothing must happen to her. You guys. Lu Chen looked at them anxiously and with heartache. At this moment, Omen suddenly spoke. What kind of joke are you guys playing? We brothers have already said that we will go through thick and thin together. How can I leave you guys behind and leave alone? Omen, even if it's for Linger, you have to leave first. Ironwood said in a low voice. Omen shook his head. Nameless brother, our lives were saved by you. Naturally, we should be the ones holding up the rear. However, Omen begs Nameless brother and Miss Li Wei. If there's a chance, please help me. Help me save Linger. I can't leave them behind. Lu Chen's mind was already in a mess. Although he had only spent a few days with the people from Celestial Fortress, everyone had stayed behind for the same purpose. They had infiltrated the fortress several times and were surrounded by danger. It could be said that they had gone through life and death together. At this moment, seeing that they had stayed behind to cover for him, Lu Chan felt extremely uncomfortable. Nameless brother, I have seen countless people. I can see that you are a person who values friendship and righteousness. Such a person is very rare nowadays. All right, you guys hurry up and leave. Don't let our sacrifice be in vain. Omin finished speaking and pushed Lu Chen away. Hurry up and leave. Li Wei pulled Lu Chen, who was still in a daze. Nameless, although there may not be any hope of escaping, if we can't escape, then there really won't be any hope left. Lu Chen naturally understood this logic. Even if he was extremely unwilling, he could only grit his teeth and flee into the distance. The sounds of fighting behind them were getting further and further away. However, before Lu Chen and the rest could heave a sigh of relief, a few trees in the distance quickly collapsed. Lu Chen and Li Wei looked at each other, and a terrifying thought arose in their minds. More hellhounds were coming. The two of them increased their speed and unknowingly rushed out of the dense forest. In front of them was a bottomless abyss. If the two of them had not reacted quickly, they would have fallen straight down. A huge crack lay in front of the two of them. A chilly wind blew through the bottom of the crack, and there were also faint traces of a huge object moving under the Sacred Academy. It seemed that some terrifying magical beast was lurking below. Lu Chen opened the underworld compass. When the other party was chasing them, they had deliberately forced the two of them into the abyss of eternal calamity. This abyss was larger than the Magic Eye Canyon in the Baisher Kingdom. Moreover, there was a dense forest under the canyon, and no one knew what was at the bottom of the abyss of eternal calamity. A moment later, 7 or 8 hellhounds and a large number of army of the dead rushed out from the forest in all directions. The hellhounds closed in on the two of them step by step. The army of the dead had already surrounded them. The leader was a demon. He looked at Lu Chen and Li Wei with a relaxed expression and laughed. Run, keep running. Do you know what's behind us? The abyss of eternal calamity. Even we don't dare to go down, not to mention you living people. If you go down, you'll be doomed eternally. How bold of you to sneak into the city of the dead souls. Unfortunately, you forgot that this is the underworld. The souls of the dead that you kill will come to our nightmare city. Ha ha, how laughable. Who knows how many people who tried to escape were caught by us like this. As he spoke, the man stopped smiling and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. All right, you have nowhere to run now. Come and replenish our army's provisions. At this moment, Li Wei suddenly said softly, Jump down. Lu Chen did not react. This is our only way out. Once we are caught, we have no chance of winning. Not only that, once the door to the underworld opens, the Demonic Academy, Fonlai Sacred Academy, and Celestial Fortress will all be finished. Lu Chen looked back at the abyss of eternal calamity. Are you sure you want to jump down? It seemed that this was their only way out. Chapter 1019. Capture him alive. The other side had already made their move. Dozens of lightning-fast black shadows pounced on the two of them. If there were only dozens of people, Lu Chen might try to fight them. However, judging from the number of figures flashing in the forest, there were thousands of people in the army of the dead. Lu Chen couldn't do anything with such a gap in strength. Then jump. Lu Chen didn't care so much. Li Wei, let's go. After saying that, he jumped down the canyon of myriad calamities. However, when Lu Chen jumped down, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. Li Wei didn't jump. Damn, she's still using this trick at this time? Nameless, you owe me a favor. If you can survive, avenge my Fox Demon Clan. Li Wei shouted at Lu Chen. The next moment, several people rushed to the edge of the cliff. Don't let him escape. You can use flying skills in the upper 100 meters of the canyon of myriad calamities. Use Soul Netlock. A sword light suddenly swept from the side and disrupted their formation. Li Wei gripped her long sword tightly and snorted. You want to capture him? Have you asked for my permission? In an instant, Li Wei was entangled with these people. It wasn't difficult for these experts to catch up with Lu Chen when he fell. However, with Li Wei covering for him, none of them had the time to catch Luchan. This opportunity was fleeting. Finally, they were sure that they couldn't catch up with Luchan. Good, 1-star King Realm. You have some skills. The voice of the leader of the army of the dead came from the edge of the cliff. Your man fell into the canyon of myriad calamities. Do you really think he has a chance to survive? Ha ha ha, how naive. And you, in front of me, have no chance. At the edge of the cliff, the earth shook. It was obvious that a desperate battle was going on. However, Luchan couldn't see it. He closed his eyes as a huge wave of guilt washed over him. It's all because of my decision. If I hadn't killed that person, perhaps we wouldn't have been found. Luchan gritted his teeth and closed his eyes in pain. Boss, a voice rang out in his mind. It was Limitless Sword. At that time, if you don't kill that person, you will definitely be exposed. Misty Wei is right. As long as one person is still alive, there is still a glimmer of hope. Cherish the glimmer of hope that Misty Wei has fought for you. Survive in this myriad tribulation abyss. Luchan nodded painfully. That's right. The more it was like this, the more he couldn't die. The burden on his shoulders was too heavy. He could not die. Thinking of this, Luchan forced himself to stay alert. There seemed to be a powerful suction force pulling Luchan's body from the myriad calamity abyss. At first, he didn't feel it when he first fell into the abyss, but now he couldn't get rid of this suction force. He accelerated his descent after an unknown amount of time. An incomparably huge shadow suddenly appeared from the cracks in the rock walls on both sides and pounced on Luchan. Luchan hurriedly used Great Ravager to attack the beast's eyes. The giant beast didn't seem to dare to chase after Luchan. It only pounced from one rock wall to the other, covering a distance of over 1,000 meters. After its attack failed, it didn't dare to chase after Luchan. It drilled into the crack in the rock wall, only to see a pair of huge red eyes staring at Luchan as he fell. That guy seems to be afraid of being sucked in by this suction force. Luchan guessed. Unfortunately, he couldn't go to the rock walls on either side. After seeing that gluttonous giant beast, Luchan noticed that the cracks on both sides of the rock walls were filled with red dots of light. Those weren't gems, but monsters like the giant beast from before. There were so many of them that the rock walls on both sides faintly glowed with a dark red light. Now, the rock walls were even more dangerous than the myriad calamity abyss. As Luchan continued to fall, the suction force became stronger and stronger. Luchan's speed also became faster and faster, and his consciousness was almost blurred. After an unknown amount of time, waves of heat came from underground. It was unbearably hot. So hot, Luchan was in great pain. At this speed, even with Luchan's physical strength, he couldn't withstand it. Moreover, it was extremely hot right now. Light gradually appeared in front of him. Luchan squinted his eyes and could barely see it. Where was that? The Earth's core? The surrounding temperature was getting hotter and hotter. His body was about to be evaporated. At this temperature, he would be evaporated into a dried corpse before he could reach the Earth's core. This time, Luchan didn't have the desolate Heaven Blood Demon Stone to save his life. Boss, we're in so much pain. Xiao Min and Little Green couldn't bear it anymore. They were hiding in Luchan's pet bar. How could they not be able to withstand the high temperature here? This place probably wouldn't stop until one's body, consciousness, and everything else melted. Luchan finally understood why this place was called the Abyss of Calamity. If one fell into it, they would be doomed eternally. Even the army of the dead wouldn't be able to withstand this temperature. It was like an oven for evolution. No, I can't die here. If I die, Li Wei, Ironwood, Wu Xian, Skyfall, Linger, the Demonic Academy, the Fonlai Academy, the Celestial Fortress, and even the entire Sixth Heaven. The temperature was getting higher and higher. Luchan's skin was already starting to peel off. Symbiosis of gods and demons. Soul and body is one. Luchan desperately activated his skill. Emptiness of gods and demons' arm. Now only the emptiness of gods and demons' arm could move in this environment. He took out the strange flame bead and swallowed it. The strange flame bead increased one's fire affinity and fire skill damage. After swallowing the strange flame bead, Lu Chun felt a lot more comfortable. Kong Lianxin had once told him that he was a chaos spiritual core and that everything in the world originated from chaos. He was indeed an elemental insulator, but at the same time, he was also an elemental symbiotic body. As long as he could use it properly, he could use all kinds of elements. The Earth's core lava had already entered Lu Chen's vision. It was a lava hell. Moreover, this was the Earth's core lava of the underworld. It was even more terrifying. If he fell in, his soul might be burned to ashes. But at this time, Lu Chen shouted, "Selfless! Either you comprehend the fire element of chaos, spiritual energy, or you die in the sea of fire." A sea of clouds was holding an emergency meeting. The participants were the instructors of the Demonic Academy and the Fonlai Academy. This was the second time the mysterious person had sent a secret letter. The first letter said that Wu Xian and Skyfall had fallen into their hands and asked them to bring people to rescue them. When a sea of clouds received this secret letter, he was just discussing countermeasures with Tian and Kong Lianxin. After all, the dean was still there, and there might still be a chance to turn things around. But the second letter's content was a bit shocking. Nameless died in battle, and Li Wei was captured. Dean Li Wei was also captured in order to cover for Nameless. In 14 days, they will publicly execute Dean Li Wei, Skyfall, and Wu Xian. A sea of clouds said in a heavy tone. They also said that Nameless is dead. Tian was the first to stand up. "I don't believe that Nameless is dead. He can't die so easily." A sea of clouds released a shadow stone, which showed the scene of them chasing after Nameless and the others. The people of Celestial Fortress stayed behind to protect them. Nameless jumped into the abyss. Li Wei was seriously injured and captured in order to stop the pursuers. "How can they be so strong? Who are they?" Long Xiang asked. "I don't know. They just said that they were from another continent. But looking at their strength, I can't believe that these strong people couldn't fight back." A sea of clouds shook his head and said, "Strong people like them don't dare to chase after the abyss." I'm afraid that what they said is true. Since ancient times, there has been no return from the abyss. Tian slumped in his chair, his mind blank. Li Wei was seriously injured and captured alive. Nameless died. Chapter 10:20. Should we report this matter to the Zhongxinge? Saiji asked. "I have a feeling that those people's identities aren't simple." Long Xiang pondered for a moment before saying, "I don't think it's necessary. The Zhongxinge has always been wary of the Dean. They hope that the Dean can represent prosperous origin continent and rise to power, but they don't want him to rise too quickly. Now that this matter has happened, they might not really care about our lives." Tian calmed down and said, "Long Xiang is right. They only care about the teleportation gate, not our people. I'm afraid that if we tell them, we'll become more passive." Someone from the Fonlai Academy said, "I also think that we shouldn't inform the Zhongxinge." After some discussion, everyone decided not to report this matter to the Zhongxinge and to carry out the rescue in private. The Fonlai Academy sent 500 disciples to the Demonic Academy, led by Vice Dean Yaohe. On the Demonic Academy's side, Tian personally led 500 disciples. 12 days later, a total of 1,000 people from both sides entered the secret passage. At the bottom of the Myriad Calamities abyss, lava flowed down along with the terrain, forming large and small lava waterfalls. Finally, the lava flowed from all directions into a large lava lake. At the center of the lava lake was a huge red sphere. The surface of the sphere was already half liquefied, and bright red lava continuously flowed down from the surface of the sphere. Next to the huge sphere was a mass of red spiritual energy that looked like a huge bubble. The bubble was very close to the huge sphere, only about 3 to 4 meters away. If one took a closer look, they would discover that there was a figure wrapped within the bubble. This person's white hair fluttered in the heat waves, and he was completely naked. He was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, cultivating. Lu Chun was still alive. 12 days ago, Lu Chun had fallen into the Myriad Calamities abyss. During the fall, he had swallowed the strange flame bead and entered a state of selflessness, attempting to convert his chaos spiritual energy into the fire attribute. After absorbing part of the surrounding fire element spiritual energy, Lu Chen's chaos spiritual energy quickly converted into fire element spiritual energy. Finally, he managed to escape the calamity. However, although he did not die immediately, the huge red ball had a powerful force pulling Lu Chen. Lu Chen could resist the magma in the Earth's core, but he knew that if he were to be sucked into the sphere, his little flame affinity would not be able to resist the high temperature inside, and he would be melted in the end. Lu Chen could only desperately resist the suction. At first, Lu Chen was constantly being pulled closer. Although the speed was not fast, Lu Chen was unable to break free. However, when Lu Chen was pulled a few dozen meters in front of the red sphere, he began to try to absorb the vast spiritual energy emitted by the sphere. Now, he finally stabilized the distance between him and the red sphere. It could be said that these 3 to 4 meters were the distance between life and death. At first, after trying many methods, Lu Chen discovered that only by absorbing this spiritual energy could he resist the constant pulling force. He entered a state of cultivation and continuously absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy. Lu Chen came to the conclusion that this pulling force was not a skill, but a strange phenomenon caused by the release of some kind of spiritual energy. Since that was the case, if he could absorb this spiritual energy, there was hope for him to escape from the myriad calamity abyss. When he was near the sphere, the fire's spiritual energy became even more violent. The intense heat waves were almost roasting people, and the spiritual energy was surging violently like a broken dam in the sea. Lu Chen's strength was not the strongest, but his mental cultivation method was undoubtedly the best in Jiutian. If Lu Chen had not used the chaotic celestial demon mental cultivation method and consumed the abnormal flame bead, his body would have exploded, and he would have died if he had used other mental cultivation methods to forcibly absorb this spiritual energy. While resisting the pulling force, Lu Chen was also cultivating. This place was like a natural spiritual vein. Cultivating in the center of the spiritual vein, Lu Chen's spiritual energy increased at an extremely fast rate. At this critical moment, Lu Chen did not dare to stop cultivating for a moment. The spiritual energy he gained every minute reached an astonishing 500 points. It was as if Lu Chen was not cultivating, but the sphere was forcibly instilling spiritual energy into him. During these 10 days, Lu Chen's spiritual energy also soared crazily. In 10 days, his spiritual energy had increased to 7 million points. The total spiritual energy of Lu Chen's fighting soul had exceeded 12 million points. At the same time, Lu Chen's physical body was undergoing drastic changes in this extremely harsh environment. The Underworld's planet crystal core is transforming your body. The Underworld's planet crystal core? This fireball is the planet crystal core. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Who would have thought that the planet crystal core was hidden under the myriad calamity abyss? Moreover, it was the planet crystal core of the entire sixth heaven of the Underworld. The planet crystal core could cure Lu Chen's fatigue. Sure enough, Lu Chen found that his condition was undergoing earth-shaking changes while cultivating next to the planet crystal core. Physical attributes increased. Strength increased by 50 points. Agility increased by 50 points. Physique increased by 50 points. As long as Lu Chen cultivated for a minute, his physical attributes would increase by 50 points each. Lu Chen almost cried. How long had it been? Thanks to his fatigue condition, he could not increase his attributes. After coming to the sixth heaven for so long, apart from the emptiness of God's and demons' arm and the mutant dragon crystal, his strength had not increased at all. He was still a star-field great cultivator. However, today his attributes had finally increased. Although it was only 50 points, it was more than 10 million points in the past. Physical spiritual energy increased by 10 points. Even without the extraction scroll, his spiritual power was still increasing at a fast rate. In fact, the extraction scroll was made by a high-level talisman master using a special method to extract spiritual energy from spirit stones. Naturally, there were other ways to increase one's spiritual energy, but they were extremely rare. It seemed that this giant fireball had such an ability. It can actually increase one's spiritual energy. Three-dimensional physical body limit increased by 10%. Lu Qin's original physical body limit was 15 times that of spiritual energy. Now that it was increased by 1%, it could reach 16. 5 times. The underworld crystal core's effect is too strong. It actually directly strengthens the body. There was also the last attribute, which made Lu Qin overjoyed. Fatigue condition is weakened. Fatigue condition, physical and spiritual energy consumption increased by 8 times. Skills and elixirs cannot be used to recover. When using the Pure Flame spiritual pill, fatigue condition will disappear for 30 seconds and can be used once every 3 days. Although fatigue was not cured, it still consumed a lot of spiritual energy under normal circumstances, 9 times that of an ordinary person. However, the last sentence saved Lu Qin. By using the Pure Flame spiritual pill, he could get rid of fatigue condition for 30 seconds. For Lu Qin, who had almost forgotten what it felt like to be in a normal state, this 30 seconds of happiness came too suddenly. In more than 10 days, Lu Qin's spiritual energy increased by 150,000. All 3 dimensions increased by 750,000. His level finally rose from a star-field great cultivator that had not changed for 10,000 years to a 7-star great cultivator. The biggest increase was the battle soul's spiritual energy. From the original peak of 5 million, it increased by 8 million. His total spiritual energy broke through 13 million. Chapter 1021. Divine Demon Mental Cultivation Technique Level 6. Can only be cultivated in the Divine Demon Symbiosis state of the 6th transformation and above. Gain 120 battle soul spiritual energy every minute. During the cultivation process, there's a small chance of gaining 10 spiritual energy. Lu Qin looked at his mantra that had just been upgraded to the 6th level and fell into deep thought. After the 6th level of the mental cultivation technique, there was a requirement for the level of the Divine Demon Symbiosis state. It required a Divine Demon Symbiosis state of the 6th transformation and above to cultivate. Now that he was in the 7th transformation of the Divine Demon Symbiosis state, it seemed that he could still hold on for a while. But what the hell was that small chance of gaining 10 spiritual energy? After cultivating for 10 days, although he did not necessarily pay attention to how much his spiritual energy increased, he did not feel that the mental cultivation technique increased his spiritual energy. Small chance? It was indeed a small chance. It was so small that it could be ignored. Divine Demon set, exclusive, for void attack becomes an area of effect attack. When not converted to an area of effect attack, damage increases by 200%. Void Guard becomes an area of effect defense. The attack and defense range is determined by the maximum spiritual energy when the skill is activated. Lu Qin was stunned. The 4th exclusive had appeared. The explanation was simple, but it was still shocking. In other words, if he used the area of effect of void attack to break through the void, he could hit a large area. Without the need for an area of effect, the damage would increase by 2 times. Lu Qin suddenly felt that it was no wonder that the Divine Demon Life Reversing set was so abnormal. It was because the attributes of the set were too abnormal. Each equipment was stronger than the previous one. When Lu Qin's Divine Demon Mixed Yuan Cultivation Technique reached the 6th level, he was no longer afraid of the pulling force of the sphere. Without this strong pulling force, Lu Qin's cultivation speed began to slow down. On the 10th day, Lu Qin's physical body stopped increasing. The upper limit of his physical body attributes was fixed at 100% and did not move. In terms of battle soul spiritual energy, his cultivation speed had greatly decreased. Liu Chen also knew that he should not be able to get any more upgrades from the Underworld Crystal Core. The Underworld Crystal Core is even more powerful than the 5th Celestial Layer Planet Crystal Core. Liu Chen sighed. My physical body's strength and spiritual energy have all increased. My fighting soul's spiritual energy has increased by 8 million. With this kind of cultivation speed, it was unknown how many years others would need, but Liu Chen only used 10 days. 10 days have passed. There is still 4 to 5 days before the army of the dead makes their move. I can stay here and learn raging flames incinerate the heavens. Liu Chen took out the book. The raging flames incinerate the heavens had a total of 3 levels. Incinerate the sea, incinerate the star, and incinerate the heavens. Burning sea required a fire elemental affinity of 200. Liu Chen didn't know what his fire elemental affinity was. He was just trying to learn the skill. Learn Burning Sea. Your fire element affinity is 2,844. You have successfully learned Burning Sea. Since your fire element spirit Qi comes from the Earth's core, the skill has been renamed to Burning Sea of Earth Fire. My affinity is over 2,800? Is this considered high? Liu Chen still remembered that Kong Lien Xin had said that he had only reached the first level of Burning Sea. He hurriedly looked at the requirements of Burning Star. Burning Star required a fire elemental affinity of 2,000. He could learn it directly. Damn, this is awesome. Learn Burning Star. The second skill was also changed to Burning Star. He could learn it directly. Unfortunately, the last level, Burning Sky, required a fire elemental affinity of 20,000. Liu Chen was too far away from this value, so he temporarily gave up on learning it. After learning the first 2 levels of Raging Flames Incinerate the Heavens, Liu Chen was a little excited. After all, the only thing he wasn't good at was Prophet. Elemental Mage was also a branch of Prophet. Mastering this skill meant that Liu Chen was truly involved in all 9 major professions. Offensive elemental mages are known as long-range killing machines. No one in the 9 major professions can match their magic burst. No profession dares to give elemental mages too much time to prepare their skills. The only weakness is that elemental mages are too weak compared to other long-range professions. But I don't need to worry about this problem at all. Liu Chen smiled slightly. Floating in the air above the lava lake, Liu Chen took a deep breath. His hands formed into claws, and he lifted them up. 2 seconds later, Liu Chen fiercely raised his head and shouted, "Burning Sea of Earth Fire!" Boom, 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 boom. The entire lava lake seemed to have been turned upside down. The viscous surface of the lake fiercely exploded upwards. The entire underground space was filled with lava, splashing several hundred meters high. It climbed up the surrounding rock walls and melted the rocks there. Countless drops of lava fell on Liu Chen's body, but Liu Chen wasn't affected in the slightest. The corner of Liu Chen's mouth rose slightly, as expected of the famous ultimate skill of air refinement. The power of the first level was already no small matter. The range of this move was extremely large. The temperature of the underworld's core lava was extremely high. This was lava that could melt souls. Unless one had a sufficient fire elemental affinity, an average person wouldn't be able to withstand it. At this moment, Liu Chen suddenly heard a rumbling sound coming from underground. It seemed that the burning sea of earth fire just now had triggered the activity of the lava deeper underground. Damn, it's fiercer than I imagined. Looks like I can't try Burning Star anymore. Otherwise, I might end up burying myself here. There are still a few days before the army of the dead would execute Tian Xian and the others. Liu Chen didn't immediately go out. He had just mastered the elemental mage skill, so he still needed to practice it. These few days, Liu Chen had been practicing Burning Sea of Earth Fire, especially how to use Formless in this move. After consuming too much spiritual energy, he continued to practice his mental cultivation method to replenish his spiritual energy. 2 seconds of charging time was too long. However, after many attempts, Liu Chen discovered that he could actually start charging Burning Sea of Earth Fire at the same time during close combat. He could then use it at the last moment to achieve a kind of pseudo-instant cast effect. After some small success, it was almost time. Let's go back up first. I don't know how long I'll have to fly. My physical strength might not be able to withstand it. When I rest midway, I'll encounter those monsters on the rock wall. It will inevitably waste some time. Thinking of this, Lu Chen spread his wings and prepared to fly into the sky. However, at this moment, the huge fireball in the middle of the lava lake suddenly shone brightly. The surrounding lava was quickly sucked in by it. The lava was like countless tentacles, rushing towards the huge fireball from all directions. Lu Chen suddenly felt a strong suction force. Not good. What's wrong with that thing? It seems to be fiercer than before. Not only was the lava being absorbed, but even the rocks were collapsing. More lava was being pulled out from the ground and rushed towards the fireball. The entire underground was about to collapse. Damn, is this thing crazy? Lu Chen's eyes were about to pop out. If this continued, the next time this thing sucked him in, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. Run. Run for your life before it takes shape. This was the only thought in Lu Chen's mind. Spreading his wings, Lu Chen rushed towards the exit of the abyss. Interestingly, it wasn't just Lu Chen who was running. The countless monsters living in the crevices of the rock wall also rushed out of the crevices and frantically fled towards the sky above. It seemed that they also knew that the fireball had undergone a huge change and couldn't stay here any longer. In this way, no one had the time to deal with Lu Chen. Lu Chen madly rushed through the gaps between the monsters. Not good, my physical strength can't keep up. After flying for more than 10 minutes, Lu Chen's physical strength was somewhat exhausted. He didn't want to activate soul body as one yet, and it was even more impossible for him to use the 30 seconds of fatigue-free pure flame state. In a moment of desperation, Lu Chen grabbed the tail scale of a giant monster and hitched a ride. This giant monster was extremely fast, much faster than Lu Chen himself. After a few hours, Lu Chen finally saw the dusky red sky above his head. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly, and a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. I'm finally back. Chapter 10:22. Beside the cliff, a group of Army of the Dead was resting at the place where Lu Chen had jumped off the cliff. Speaking of which, the Army of the Dead was quite meticulous. They knew that Lu Chen couldn't have survived after jumping into the abyss of myriad calamities, but they still left people here to keep an eye on him. At this time, many people were standing beside the cliff, looking at the strange movement below in shock. What's going on down there? Do you feel it? The whole ground is shaking. How can we not feel it? Don't tell me that guy is still alive. How is that possible? Have you ever heard of someone coming up from the abyss of myriad calamities? There's a strong suction force down there. The lower you go, the stronger the suction force. As long as you're controlled by the suction force, you can't come up. At this time, a large black shadow rushed out of the cliff. Everyone hurriedly dodged. Then, thousands of black dragons rushed out of the cliff. In just a short while, at least hundreds of dragons rose into the sky. How did these guys come out of the black dragon's nest? Impossible. They can't leave the abyss of myriad calamities since the soul race banished them. How can they escape? No, something's wrong. It seems that the suction force has disappeared. As soon as they finished speaking, the black dragons that couldn't fly out of the abyss in time suddenly let out a sorrowful cry. Then their bodies suddenly fell. Although they struggled desperately, they still fell down. These black dragons looked ferocious. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, trying to grab something. They didn't even hesitate to grab their own brethren who had escaped from the suction force. Once the captured black dragons couldn't break free, they would also be pulled into the abyss. Seeing these black dragons struggling on the brink of death, not hesitating to kill their own kind, the Netherworld army was dumbfounded. What's going on? Can't the black dragons live in the abyss of myriad calamities? Why are they so afraid of returning to the abyss? At this height, the black dragons should be able to break free from the suction force. But It seems that the suction force of the abyss of myriad calamities is 100 times stronger than before. As long as these black dragons are pulled, they can't escape. I don't know if the strange movement just now was caused by these black dragons. The influence of the abyss of myriad calamities seems to have increased. We can even feel the suction force from here. It's getting stronger and stronger. Let's retreat and report to the spirit envoy. Yes. Lu Chun was currently lurking beside a black dragon. Having just experienced the madness of the black dragons, he could not help but gasp. The army of the dead did not know what was happening below, but Lu Chun knew very well that this was a race of life and death. The faster black dragons would have a chance to escape, while the slower ones would be pulled back into the abyss. This time, the crystal core was much stronger than before. Those black dragons that were captured would likely be directly sucked into the crystal core of the netherworld and be destroyed in both body and soul. Under such circumstances, those black dragons were so crazy and wanted to escape at all costs. Fortunately, Lu Chun had chosen a black dragon at the front. Otherwise, he would have been dragged back into the abyss by the black dragon at the back. The army of the dead, sure, is meticulous. It's already been more than 10 days, and there's still someone waiting for me here. Lu Chun snorted coldly. Due to the sudden change in the abyss of myriad calamities, the army of the dead had retreated. Lu Chun heaved a sigh of relief. Sitting on the black dragon, he looked back and saw that there were only 40 to 50 black dragons behind him. No way, so many black dragons escaped before, but now there are only 4 or 5 left. They were probably pulled into the abyss by their companions. The black dragon flew in the sky. Lu Chun did not know where it was going, so he immediately patted the black dragon that had escaped with him on its back. Thanks, but unfortunately, we're not going the same way. Goodbye. Lu Chun was about to leave the black dragon's back when an ancient voice suddenly sounded. How many years has it been? We finally left that damn place. Boy, you unintentionally destroyed that guy's dragon binding array and released us. It should be us black dragons who should say thanks. When I saw you fall into the abyss, I did not expect you to survive and change our fate. Lu Chun was shocked. Could it be that the black dragon was talking to him? I didn't mean to help you. It was just convenient. Lu Chun was not greedy for credit and said honestly, "Sit tight. We'll land first." After saying this, the black dragon turned and entered a vast forest. The dozens of black dragons follow behind. Originally, this large group of black dragons would have instantly crushed a large area of the forest when they landed. However, as they swooped down, the black dragons quickly transformed into their human forms. A gentle spiritual energy lifted Lu Chun up, allowing him to land with the black dragon in human form. Lu Chun looked at these people. They were all dressed in black robes and looked similar to humans. They were both men and women, but they had dragon horns on their heads. The leader looked to be in his 40s. He threw a set of black clothes over. "Put on your clothes first." Lu Chun suddenly remembered that he had not worn clothes for a while. The wild blood sword god had already melted in the earth's core. He could not bear to wear other clothes, so he simply remained naked. When he escaped, he did not have time to wear clothes, so he was still naked. Sorry, I've gotten used to this feeling recently. Lu Chun quickly went behind a tree to put on his clothes. This was a set of black clothes with golden patterns. The color was similar to Lu Chun's descent of the Demon Lord, but the style was different. This set of clothes was slimmer. When your emptiness of gods and demons arm demonizes again, this set of golden supremacy underworld dragon will automatically tear open the left sleeve. When it returns to its original state, the golden supremacy underworld dragon will also return to normal. The Black Dragon Man said. It seemed that he had seen Lu Chun's emptiness of gods and demons arm. Speaking of which, these guys were a race that could transform their bodies. Even their clothes could change shape. Lu Chun just needed such a set of clothes. Thank you. Are you black dragons or dragons? Lu Chun asked curiously. We are underworld dragons, the man said. Pure underworld dragon blood flows in our bodies, so we have the ability to transform into underworld black dragons. Then the man continued. in the abyss of myriad calamities, if we did not transform into underworld black dragons, we would not be able to resist the suction force. We would be sucked into the underworld's core and destroyed in both body and soul. We also could not escape the abyss of myriad calamities. When we fought the soul progenitor, we were sealed in the abyss of myriad calamities. If you had not triggered the revival of the underworld crystal core and inadvertently destroyed the dragon binding formation, I'm afraid we would have all been buried in the abyss of myriad calamities. Lu Chan furrowed his brows. It seems like the competition in the underworld is not inferior to the Yang world. There are also people fighting and snatching here. Who knows how many fights have taken place to form the current situation of the 4 districts and the king of hell overseeing the underworld alone. Then what do you plan to do now? Take revenge? Lu Chen had a vague feeling that they could become his allies, so he asked tentatively, "Revenge? No, it's been thousands of years. Our strength has deteriorated, and our fighting spirit has been worn away. We no longer have the heart to fight for hegemony. We no longer want to go back to that hell. Thousands of years is enough to wear away the hatred of an entire race." The Black Dragon Man's gaze was complicated. Vicissitudes, relief, helplessness, and relief. Perhaps even he himself could not tell. Chapter 1023. Lu Chen frowned. Unfortunately, finding an ally seemed to be a lost cause. Human brat. After we escape this time, we will find a place to live in seclusion. This set of clothes was once the battle robe of our underworld Dragon King. After the Dragon King was defeated, he committed suicide to atone for his sins. If you don't care about his past, I will give it to you. Lu Chun looked at these underworld dragon clan. It seemed that they really did not have any fighting spirit. Inviting them to help him at this time was definitely hopeless. All right, but I have a question to ask you all. Lu Chan said, "Do you all know about the underworld flower?" Underworld flower? Why do you want to find that thing? I want to reincarnate my friends. Lu Chan said in astonishment. Their souls were not returned to the underworld. If they were returned to the underworld, they would not be able to reincarnate. The man said, "No." Lu Chan said with certainty. If not, although theoretically there's a glimmer of hope, but the underworld flower can cut off the soul's connection with the underworld. In other words, the underworld flower can completely let the soul wander outside. To the people of the underworld flower is actually the most severe punishment. If they are exiled to the outside world, they will become a lonely soul. In the Yang world, the soul has almost no fighting power. It is very easy for cultivators to absorb it as spiritual energy. So, the underworld flower should be in the hands of the king of hell, Demon Lord. If you want to get it, I am afraid. Lu Chen slightly narrowed his eyes. The king of hell, Demon Lord? The opening of the underworld door must be his doing. Adding on the underworld flower, it seemed that his fate with the underworld's strongest was beginning to inevitably intersect. How strong is the king of hell, Demon Lord? In your 6th heaven, the dead of all the continents will enter this underworld. Since ancient times, countless experts have fallen in the 6th heaven. There should be countless of them. The man said, excluding those who went to the 7th heaven. He alone rules the underworld. How strong do you think he is? Another woman said, let's put it this way. Unless the heaven domain boss comes out from Tong Tian Tower in the 6th heaven, even those weak loose immortals will die if they meet him. Loose immortal? That's impossible. Lu Chen was still in disbelief. What's impossible about that? Do you think all loose immortals are very strong? According to your cultivation level, from human king to immortal ascension, you need to go through a heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation is unimaginably terrifying. If 100 people go through the heavenly tribulation, there might not even be one person who can ascend. Many people would die during the tribulation, while some would survive, but their cultivation would be damaged to varying degrees. We're both loose immortals, but our strength is worlds apart. Unless he encounters those powerful loose immortals, Demon Monarch King of Hell strength is no weaker than that of ordinary loose immortals. Lu Chun frowned. He had thought that loose immortals could rival super experts at the peak of the king realm. It turned out that there was such a big gap in strength among loose immortals. Lu Chan took a deep breath. There was no doubt that the name King of Hell was not given casually. That guy's strength was indeed extraordinary. Little brother, the news that we escaped from the abyss of calamities will soon spread. We must leave here immediately. Good luck. With that, the group of underworld dragons quickly fled into the forest and disappeared. Lu Chun shook his head. From the information he had obtained, it seemed that it would be difficult for him to stop the underworld gate from opening with his current strength. Forget it. Let's save Wu Xian and the others first. Lu Chun immediately turned on the compass and set off in the direction of the city of dead souls. A total of 1,000 people from the Demonic Academy and the Fonlai Academy had arrived at the Phoenix Cry Plain. They're not from another continent. This is the underworld. Etion ordered everyone to stay alert at all times. Yaoi nodded. I didn't expect that the teleportation gate led to the underworld. This is simply unbelievable. A sea of clouds frowned. If Wu Xian and the others were captured by the people of the underworld, then we're in trouble. To them, we're like spirits in the Yang world. We can replenish our spiritual energy, but we can also become puppets. Many disciples of the Divine Demon Academy were extremely anxious when they heard a sea of clouds' words, especially Wu Xian and Skyfall's friends. When they thought that they might be made into puppets, they felt both disgusted and worried. At this moment, a group of more than 800 people appeared on the other side of the road. Seeing these people, a sea of clouds immediately ordered everyone to stay alert. The other party's reaction was similar to theirs. The people behind them all stopped and stared at the people of the Divine Demon Academy and Fonlai Academy with full vigilance. Those people don't seem to be ghosts. Etion looked at them and said curiously, There are other cultivators here? A sea of clouds. Yao He, don't make a move first. I'll go forward and scout. Etion, be careful. Etion walked towards the other party and shouted, Which academy are you from? Seeing that he was the only one approaching and had the same doubts, one of them also walked forward. We're from Celestial Fortress. You're not from the Azure Pond continent? Azure Pond continent? No, we're from Prosperous Origin continent. Etion sensed that the other party didn't seem to have any ill intentions, so he asked further, Why did you enter the underworld? Some of our people were captured by them, so they informed us to come and save them. Etion was relieved. Did you receive the Shadow Stone? Yes. Can someone come forward and check? The few people on the other side discussed for a moment, and one of them walked forward. Although both sides had battle Shadow Stones and knew that Lu Chun and Ironwood had fought together, both sides were very cautious in the other world. Only when both sides took out Shadow Stones to check did both sides completely let down their guard. So you're the sect of these people in the Shadow Stone. Since we're all on the same side, let's save them together. A white-bearded old man from Celestial Fortress said, I'm He Xing, the Pavilion Master of World Edge Pavilion in Celestial Fortress. Those people are my disciples. Etion also cupped his fists and introduced a sea of clouds, Yao He and the others to He Xing. After the two sides met, the total number of people had reached more than 1,800. It looked like a powerful team. They marked the meeting place on the Shadow Stone. It should be not far from here, He Xing said. A sea of clouds nodded. Then let's hurry up. Sure enough, after crossing a slope, the first thing they saw was an open area. There were 10 iron pillars, and each iron pillar had a person tied to it. Wu Xian Skyfall. Linger Ironwood. Everyone recognized their own people, except for Li Wei. All 10 of them were tied up with chains and could not move. Behind the 10 iron pillars, there was a long battle formation in an orderly manner. There were 20 to 30,000 of them. At the front of the battle formation, there were thousands of huge hellhounds with fire under their feet. They stared at the people with their mouths open and drooling. Ironwood saw that the people from Celestial Fortress were coming to save them. His eyes were filled with pain, and he shouted, Don't worry about us, run. The others were also shouting, Run? You're not their match. 3 people walked out from the dark army of the City of Dead Souls. The ghost-masked woman smiled. What are you thinking? Run? I'm sorry, but none of you can escape. As soon as she said that, behind the three academies, a large number of troops rushed out from the hills on the left and right. They were surrounded. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and said to Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan, "Hey, this time, I'm afraid we'll have to fight for our lives. Don't die, you too. They killed my teacher. They deserve to die." Xiao Zhan's eyes were filled with anger. Yi Fan pursed his lips. If not for the dean, I, Yi Fan, would have died in the hands of the Purple Sky Palace. Today, even if I have to risk my life, I will avenge the dean. Chapter 10:24. The Netherworld army was no longer satisfied with catching small fishes. This time, they had attracted close to 2,000 people to join them. The people from Celestial Fortress were very strong. They didn't panic at all when facing an army of tens of thousands. Yixing snorted, "Hey, I don't care who you are or what your goal is. I'm warning you, let them go now." The skinny man smiled. TSK. You don't even know that you're about to die. You want us to let them go? Even in your world, killing you is as easy as lifting a finger. Not to mention, this is the underworld. I'm bored anyway. It's been a long time since I've met a decent opponent. Let's play some more. Ding Quang, let them see how weak they are. A man from the demon race walked out from the army of the dead with a scythe in his hand. He cupped his fist at the skinny man. Yes, Ding Quang. Try not to kill them. After all, we need them to replenish our oxygen reserves. Yes, Ding Quang. After saying that, the man walked towards them alone. A middle-aged man from Celestial Fortress walked towards Yixing, a sea of clouds, and Yao He. He said, "This guy wants to fight one-on-one. I'll go and meet him first." Yixing nodded. "All right, let's test the opponent's strength first. Drifting Goblet, be careful. Ironwood's warning isn't without reason." Okay. After saying that, Drifting Goblet walked towards the opposite side. Both sides sent out one person each. The two people walked faster and faster. "How dare you touch my people from Celestial Fortress? I'll let you know the power of Celestial Fortress." Drifting Goblet roared. "I, Drifting Goblet, will accompany you in this battle." Ding Quang snorted. "Who told you that I'm here to fight one-on-one? You think you can stop me? You're dreaming." As the two spoke, they sped up towards each other. At the same time, they activated many buffs and domain skills. In an instant, the two of them entered the soul-body fusion state. In the next moment, the two of them activated their teleportation skills at the same time. From hundreds of meters away, they were already fighting. Ding Quang seemed to specialize in close combat. He instantly swung his scythe. On the other side, Drifting Goblet was also a close combat pugilist. He wielded two swords and attacked with both hands. As soon as the two of them exchanged blows, Yin Hai could tell that both of them were combat experts. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, his timing was precise, and his moves were varied. "Tai Hao Field," Lu Go growled. "Tai Hao Golden Saber," Space Splitting Slash. All of a sudden, Drifting Goblet threw out dozens of blade strikes, each of them shining with light. The dozens of blade shadows mixed in with the normal attacks, reaching perfection. Formless. Yao He's eyes widened. The strength of the people from Celestial Fortress was too strong. Any random person could actually use Formless. However, Ding Quang easily dodged the saber chi and landed behind Drifting Goblet. Drifting Goblet's reaction was extremely fast. He turned around and slashed out a set of saber techniques. Ding Quang snorted coldly. "Naive. If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want to kill you, you would already be a dead man." Suddenly, a black shadow appeared behind Drifting Goblet. The scythe in his hand swept towards Drifting Goblet's lower body. Just as Drifting Goblet jumped up, the scythe's blade suddenly chopped at Drifting Goblet's arms. The blade's appearance was too strange. The blade was supposed to sweep towards Drifting Goblet's lower body, but why did it suddenly appear in front of his arms? Even though Drifting Goblet was very experienced, this was the first time he had encountered such a strange situation. Space. Skill. Suddenly, Drifting Goblet reacted. "At least you have some foresight. Unfortunately, you found out too late. Ding Quang sneered. He raised his blade and chopped off both of Drifting Goblet's arms. Crane's eyes widened. How does this guy know a space skill? Etion was also shocked. Nameless also had a similar method. For example, the triple door could be used together with a certain skill. He could use the triple door skill to teleport to a faraway place. However, that was just a method to simulate a spatial skill. Compared to a real spatial skill, regardless of speed or fusion, it was not on the same level. Even so, Liu Chan was still able to achieve miraculous feats by using this skill. From this, one could infer just how terrifying a real space skill was. Drifting Goblet looked at his severed arms and stared at Ding Quang in horror. How did you break through my War Soul's defense and cut off my arms? Impossible. My War Soul's defense can't be useless. I'm sorry. Your War Soul can increase your stats, but my underworld spiritual energy can ignore your War Soul's defense. Ding Quang glanced at Drifting Goblet. Actually, Theo the Great's 9 stars should be at your peak. You're much stronger than Ironwood. Unfortunately, you're still far from being my match. Watch carefully. I'm going to charge into your army of 2,000. After saying this, Ding Quang did not stop. He teleported and charged towards the three-way army. Come, whether you're a genius or an expert, come and play with me. The power of the space skill was displayed to the extreme by Ding Quang. Every time he attacked, he could hit someone in front of him. However, if he was not careful, a student who was distracted would suffer. Damn, this spatial skill is too overpowered. Xiao Zhan's face was filled with anger. He did not have a chance to find Ding Quang's main body. However, he still had to be on guard against the scythe. Chu Tian and Yi Fan were beside Xiao Zhan. Don't be distracted at this time. That guy is too strong. Just now, the peak 9 stars Theo the Great was defeated by him in an instant. There were more experts on the Celestial Pavilion's side. They quickly attacked and tried to stop Ding Quang from charging into their formation. However, Ding Quang's skill allowed him to teleport. It was impossible to guard against it. In the 10 seconds that Ding Quang had charged over, dozens of people had already been injured by the scythe. Their formation was about to be destroyed by Ding Quang alone. Finally, Hixing could not take any more and shouted, "Light's fury!" A strong beam of light shot over, illuminating the heaven and earth in a bright white. This spiritual power was extremely concentrated. Even Ding Quang did not dare to take it head-on. He was forced to retreat. Elemental Mage? So strong. I was careless. I should have attacked that old man first. Ding Quang stared at Hixing. After being forced to retreat, Ding Quang was not convinced. He stood up and said coldly, "Hey, old man, it's hard for you to recover your spiritual power in the underworld. Using this skill must have consumed a lot of your spiritual power. Let's see how many more times you can use Light's Fury." After saying this, Ding Quang was about to charge again. Shield of Light. Hixing raised his hands, and a shield of light appeared around everyone, protecting everyone from the Celestial Fortress, the Demonic Academy, and the Fonlai Academy. Senior brother Hixing, we can't recover our spiritual power here. The Shield of Light consumes too much of our spiritual power. A Celestial Fortress member said anxiously. Hixing shook his head, his eyes blazing like torches. There's nothing we can do even if we consume too much energy. This time, we've fallen into their trap. Our strength has been greatly reduced in the underworld, while they're like fish in water. We have no chance of winning this battle. We can only wait for the other branches of the Celestial Fortress to come and help. Elixirs. Right, elixirs can also restore spiritual power. A sea of clouds hurriedly said to Hixing, "Senior Hixing, let's gather all the elixirs we have. Maybe we can hold on a little longer." Hixing nodded. "That's all we can do for now." Ding Quang attacked several times outside the Shield of Light, but it seemed that the elements just happened to counter each other. He could not break through the Shield of Light. Damn it, it's a light elemental mage. If it were another element, I would have killed you in minutes. Weren't you so arrogant just now? Why are you suddenly acting like a coward? Let's see how long you can last. Ding Quang cursed outside, but none of the three forces stepped out of the shield of light. Ding Quang, come back. In the distance, the skinny soul called out. Ding Quang also knew that these people would not come out now, so he carried the scythe and dragged Drifting Goblet back to report. They tied Drifting Goblet to the 11th iron pillar. Not long after, Ding Quang stepped out of the ranks and walked to the 11 iron pillars. He said to the allied forces, "You want to waste time, right? Sure, we are very hospitable. We can't wait to welcome more cultivators to our underworld to take a look." The spirit envoy said that I did well and rewarded me with a Yongbon. These 3 little ones are all the best, so I don't dare to choose. But these 8 old ones, which one should I choose? Tell me, who wants to be sucked dry by me? Ding Quang looked at Ironwood and the others, his eyes full of ridicule. Suddenly, Ding Quang jumped in front of Ironwood and stabbed his fingers into his head. "I choose you. Yang Qi, let me have a good taste." Chapter 1025. Ironwood's mind quickly withered. Looking at the nearly 2,000 people in front of him, he used the last of his strength to say, "Yes, no, rise." Then his body quickly shriveled up, and in a moment he was a dried corpse. "Big brother." Omen and the others roared at the top of their lungs. "Uncle." Linger was already sobbing. If it weren't for her, her father and the others wouldn't have entered the underworld, and her uncle wouldn't have been killed. The people in the underworld didn't just consume Yang Qi. The souls of those who died here would also dissipate. Ding Quang pulled his fingers out of Ironwood's skull and licked the blood on his fingers with a satisfied look. "Hee, delicious. People of Celestial Fortress, why are you looking at me like that? Do you want to kill me? He's your big brother? It seems that he took good care of you, but I've already killed him. He didn't even have the chance to enter the underworld, and you can't do anything." Ding Quang turned around and roared at the 2,000 people from the 3 academies. "Could it be that you want to watch your companions die tragically and still hide in your laughable turtle shell? It doesn't matter. You can't escape anyway. It's better if more people come to save you." Ding Quang turned around leisurely under the angry gazes of the crowd. "Don't worry. We'll take over the Yang world in the end, and all of you will have the same fate. After that, we'll execute 1 person every hour. It'll be a good show for you to watch before you die." This time, the disciples of Celestial Fortress were completely enraged. It's just death. The Celestial Fortress has never been humiliated like this. "Pavilion Master, let us out and let me kill to my heart's content. Senior brother Ironwood, I'll kill them. We can't wait for reinforcements from the other pavilions. Pavilion Master, why don't we give it our all?" He Xing and the others were furious as they watched Ironwood die in front of their eyes. The sorrow in his heart was like thunder, but he was no ordinary disciple. He was the Pavilion Master. He knew that the Shield of Light was the last hope to stop the army of the dead. If they fought now, they had almost no chance of winning. But if they could wait for reinforcements, they might have a chance of survival. The people who came this time were all elites of the World's Edge Pavilion. If they were all killed, the World's Edge Pavilion would only exist in name. "Shut up, all of you," He Xing roared. "If you go out now, you'll die. It's impossible for me to trade your lives for the lives of others." Etian looked at He Xing fortunately. He Xing was rational enough. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stood a chance. The skinny spirit envoy also heard He Xing's words. He smiled and said, "You are so naive. Do you think that no one can break the Shield of Light? There are still illusions." As soon as he finished speaking, a blade shadow suddenly appeared in front of him and shot directly towards the Shield of Light. The black blade shadow cut through the side of the Shield of Light, and He Xing spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone looked at the skinny spirit envoy in shock. Just now, they didn't even see him make a move, but he had finished drawing his blade. The blade light even hurt He Xing directly. How horrible his strength was. If that blade light had been aimed at the Shield of Light, the consequences would have been unimaginable. What realm are you in?" He Xing tried his best to support himself and looked at the spirit envoy in shock. "It's okay to tell you. I'm at the 2-star Ghost King realm. Well, I've fought with many masters in the Yang world. It's not difficult to kill a few 5-star ghost kings here. The spirit envoy said leisurely. The underworld was advantageous to the souls of the dead, and the Yang world was advantageous to the cultivators. But in a fair environment, this guy could surpass the underworld, and he could easily kill a few at a time. Now you know, I'm just playing with you because I'm bored. Where did your hope come from? Where did the opportunity come from? The attack of the skinny spirit envoy was like a heavy punch, which made the people of Celestial Fortress and Fonlai Holy Academy tremble. Among the disciples of Celestial Fortress, some of them even began to lose their fighting spirit. Their faces were pale, and their fingers were trembling, but they were still holding on. Will we be sucked dry too? What are you talking about? Don't shake the morale of the army. Senior brother, I'm just a little scared. The disciples of Fonlai Holy Academy were even more so. Many of the female disciples' eyes were red. Where's Masterly Wei? Why don't I see Masterly Wei? Could it be that she's already been killed? I've never seen Masterly Wei's real strength. She's known as the most powerful person in Fonlai Holy Academy. Could it be that even she, the skinny spirit envoy's attack, broke the psychological defense of many people? Except for one academy. Chu Tian stared at the spirit envoy. This guy should be the strongest opponent he had ever met. But there seemed to be two people who were as strong as him, or even stronger. The two spirit envoys stood beside him at the beginning, but they didn't say anything. Usually, those who jumped around at the beginning were the weak ones. The strong ones must be at the end. Should I use that move? What if I can't control it after I use it? He looked sideways at Yi Fan and Xiao Zhan. Both of them had the same dignified look. Then he looked at the people of the Demonic Academy. Everyone looked dignified and silent. The people of the Demonic Academy were all geniuses. But geniuses in Jiuqian were different from geniuses in the general sense. In Jiuqian, geniuses didn't mean people who were stronger than others without hard work. The geniuses here were all people who had gone through a lot of battles. Only then could they get better opportunities than others and reach a higher realm at a very young age. The more they experienced, the calmer they became. A sea of clouds suddenly said, "This battle may be your last battle. You don't need to hold back anymore. I'm sorry. It's us who led you into a desperate situation." Yi Fan, who was always a man of few words, suddenly said, "Uncle, a sea of clouds, since we joined the Demonic Academy, we have been members of the Demonic Academy. We can still distinguish right from wrong. The dean died in order to save his disciple. If we were the ones who entered the secret passage, the dean would also enter the underworld without hesitation. With such a dean, with such an academy, we have nothing to complain about. It's just death. Why should a real man be afraid of life and death? All we want is to settle our grudges. The dean is Yi Fan's teacher. We can't live under the same sky as him. There's no reason for us to retreat." On the Fonlai Academy's side, Ronger was among them. She looked at Yi Fan from afar, the target in her heart. When she was defeated by Yi Fan, Ronger hated Yi Fan to the core. But now, after hearing Yi Fan's words, she realized that she had been paying special attention to that guy not only because of his outstanding strength. If that guy didn't die, he would definitely become the most dazzling star. Well said. Xiao Zhan also stood up. Junior brothers and sisters, today is the battle of life and death for our Demonic Academy. Back then, Uncle A Sea of Clouds said that if you want to defy the heavens, you have to become a god fiend. Today, take out your trump cards and fight for your fellow disciples. Fight for the god fiend, and fight for the dean. Everyone from the Divine Devil Academy had been suppressing their battle intent for a long time, and in the extreme adversity, they finally erupted at this moment. Senior brother, there's no need to say more. We're not afraid of death. You dare to touch our dean? Touch our god fiend disciple. Are we just going to let this go? With me here, it's impossible. So what if it's the underworld? Anyone who touches a god fiend, even if it's the 3 realms or the 6 realms, will be killed. Chapter 1026. Celestial Fortress was dumbfounded. Why are they all so hot-tempered? Didn't they say they're from the lower house? Why do I feel like they're even more powerful than a mortal academy? Demonic academy. What kind of academy is it? A sea of clouds and Etion looked at each other and nodded in tacit understanding. A sea of clouds walked to Crane Walker and said, "Senior Crane Walker, I'm afraid we're doomed this time. Instead of being humiliated like this, why don't we go out and kill to our heart's content?" Crane Walker was speechless. It was one thing for the students of Divine Demon to be like this, but even the teachers were like this. Couldn't they take it? A sea of clouds said, "The strength of the underworld is far beyond our imagination, and it's not something we can fight against. This place is not connected to the outside world, and we can't send messages to the outside world. We can't warn anyone not to come here. Instead of waiting for help here, why don't we kill our way out? If we can escape, we can inform the others." Crane Walker finally understood that a sea of clouds and the others hadn't completely given up hope, but they were more inclined to look for opportunities in battle. The withered spirit envoy had proven that they could break through the shield of light. In that case, it was better to fight with all they had. Finally, Crane Walker nodded. "You too, today's demonic academy has left a deep impression on me. If we have a chance to escape, I hope we can keep in touch." A sea of clouds smiled. "The fact that Celestial Immortal Pavilion can send 1,000 people to rescue us shows that Celestial Fortress values their disciples very much. This is the same for us Divine Demon and Phoenix. If there's a chance in the future, we must communicate more." Crane Walker looked at Yao He, and Yao He nodded. "At this point, there's no other way out. I just hope that no matter whose disciple escapes, you can inform the other two academies not to enter the underworld. Also, tell the outside world about the underworld's ambition. This matter is even more important." "Of course." Crane Walker nodded. The leaders of the academies passed down the order, and then Crane Walker removed the shield of light. The army of the dead saw that they had given up on defense and immediately became excited. As soon as the withered spirit envoy raised his hand, the tens of thousands of soldiers instantly quieted down. "Why didn't you continue to stay in your turtle shells?" Hixing said coldly, "We've changed our mind. Celestial Fortress will settle the score with you for killing our disciples." "Oh, really? Looks like you've thought it through and don't want to be humiliated anymore. How boring. It looks like the game is going to end soon." "No, I haven't played enough. Ding Quang, Yazzie, White Ghost, Rainbow Demon." The spirit envoy called out 4 names, and the 4 experts stepped forward. "We'll keep them company," the spirit envoy said as he walked back to the army. "Don't kill these vessels. Just make them half dead." "Yes, Withered Spirit Envoy." The 4 of them accepted the order and stood in front of the 11 iron pillars, looking coldly at the 2,000-strong army. "Trash, come on. Grandpa and the other 3 will play with you. 4 against 2,000? This infuriated the disciples. Etion said angrily, "Nameless, Etion is here to avenge you. Soul and body is one." At this moment, a man suddenly rushed in front of Etion. "Give me your life." Etion took a closer look and saw that the first one to rush up was Yi Fan. Then, Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan rushed forward at the same time. These 3 guys were more active than anyone else in a fight. They took the lead and rushed to the front of the Demonic Academy. Gray Crow, Black Armor King, and he didn't show any weakness. With a loud bang, Yi Fan's sword hit Ding Quang's scythe. Ding Quang narrowed his eyes slightly. How dare a 2-star Theo the Great be so arrogant in front of me? As soon as he finished his words, 2 sword shadows came at him at the same time. "You're wrong. It's 3. Xiao Zhan and Chu Tian attacked at the same time. The 3 cooperated very well, without any gap. As soon as a master attacked, Ding Quang felt that the angle of their attacks and the strength of their spiritual power were different from that of many people he had met before. There was a set of moves within moves, and their spiritual power was endless. These 3 guys were very strong, but their levels were low. If they were given more time, they would become hidden dangers. Death God Space. Ding Quang's figure disappeared on the spot. Then, the scythe appeared in front of the 3 of them. That guy used a spatial skill to attack the 3 of them at the same time. Rakshasa Gate, 18 stone gates. Chu Tian activated his skill, and 18 giant stone gates rose from the ground, blocking their line of sight. After the 18 stone gates were erected, they began to rise and fall. Under the influence of the giant stone gates, their line of sight was sometimes blocked and sometimes clear, making the battle even more unpredictable. With Ding Quang's line of sight blocked, Yi Fan's group dodged at the same time. The three of them quickly separated and hid in the stone gate array. Black Pin Divine Transformation, Demonic Wind, Ghost Shadow. Black Pin Divine Transformation, Astral Wind Sword Intent. Yi Fan suddenly appeared behind Ding Quang and sent out several fierce sword chi. Ding Quang reacted quickly and dodged the Death God space again. This time, when he appeared between two stone gates, a flame suddenly shot out from above his head. Xiao Zhan was actually waiting nearby. Strange flame. Seeing Xiao Zhan's flame, Ding Quang's eyes widened and he quickly dodged again. This stone gate village could actually restrain Ding Quang's spatial attack, and Yi Fan's group was beginning to reverse the situation. A sea of clouds frowned. That brat Chu Tian wants to compete with Ding Quang's reaction speed. Long Xiang also said that guy's spatial skill is hard to deal with, but even if he uses it, he still needs to use his line of sight to determine his position. The 18 stone gates move irregularly, making it impossible for him to determine Chu Tian's position. It's like Chu Tian has divided the space into smaller areas, greatly restricting Ding Quang's spatial skill. Yi Tian couldn't help sucking in a breath. These kids are really too strong. The three of them are temporarily suppressing Ding Quang. Gray Crow and the other two were entangled with Yazzie. The three of them cooperated better than Yi Fan's group. The Black Armored King was the tank, Bai Yi was the healer in the array, and Gray Crow was the main attacker and the secondary controller. The Fonlai Academy's side couldn't help but look at the Demonic Academy in a new light. How laughable! Ronger shook her head. Back then, we wanted to slaughter the Celestial and Demon rankings. To be able to fight with so many super experts, these people are really too strong. The people from Celestial Fortress were also shocked. A mere lower house disciple was actually this strong. Their group of 6 had pinned down 2 experts, including Ding Quang, who was the most difficult to deal with. He Xing's eyes widened and he shouted, "My Celestial Fortress can't compare to a lower house disciple. Take down the other 2. As soon as he said this, 6 people charged out of Celestial Fortress and pounced on White Ghost and Rainbow Demon. The battle had officially begun. Chapter 10:27. In the distance, the Deadwood Spirit Envoy looked at the several disciples of the Divine Magic Academy. The corners of his mouth slightly raised. This Divine Magic Academy is a bit interesting. The 2 caught are like little foxes. I didn't expect that they have so many disciples with good potential. The ghost-masked woman smiled. They're really tender and delicious. The fat Spirit Envoy narrowed his eyes. Yiksha, don't think too much. After catching the people of the Divine Demons, it's best to give them to the Soul King. I think they're good materials. The woman sneered. So what if I suck a few of them dry? I can't wait to enjoy the delicious food. The dead tree saw his 2 companions arguing again and said, "Don't argue. Yiksha, are you afraid that the Soul King won't reward you?" The 2 of them snorted coldly. The fat Spirit Envoy said, "Dead tree, you've played enough. This is just a small test. The team has been training for so long. We can't just let them watch. Before the Soul King comes back, we must send this batch of top-quality goods." The dead tree nodded. "When will the Soul King come back?" The 3 Ghost Kings came back from the King of Hell's palace the day before yesterday to discuss releasing the 10 billion souls of the Eternal Soul Palace and expanding the army of the dead. They should be back soon. Yikshan narrowed his eyes. The Eternal Soul Palace is open. It seems that the war is imminent. The dead tree said, "Let's start early. I can't wait." "Well, since the Soul King is coming back, I won't play anymore. Army of the Dead, listen to my order. Capture the enemy alive." After saying that, the dead tree raised the Army of the Dead flag and waved it down. Tens of thousands of Army of the Dead, finally waiting for the order to attack, madly rushed to the 3 academies' battle formation. A sea of clouds, and the others saw the army of the dead charging around and knew that the decisive battle was imminent. Everyone was ready, using all kinds of soul-body fusion, domain, battle pet puppets, and no longer holding back. A sea of clouds sighed. At the very beginning, the demonic academy had been a lone and nameless commander without an army. But now it had over 1,000 genius students. Great teachers from all over gathered here, and they were developing in an increasingly better direction. However, who would have thought that a disciple's unintentional discovery would actually cause the fall of this academy that was filled with hope? It was truly fate making fools of people. Nameless, thank you for bringing this old man on this incredible journey. A sea of clouds took out his wine gourd and took a big gulp. He then took out a voice transmission talisman and said, "Nameless, are you still alive? No one has been spared from the myriad tribulation abyss since ancient times, but I don't believe that you've fallen just like that. If you're still alive, come save the students." Soul and body as one. A sea of clouds shouted angrily. At the same time, he raised his wine pot and took a big gulp. God of wine possession, Etion turned to look at a sea of clouds. It had been a long time since his best friend had battled, let alone his divine wine soul body. Old High, I never thought that you and I would have the opportunity to fight side by side. Give me a sip too. Etion shouted. A sea of clouds tossed the wine pot over. We can lose our lives, but we can't go without wine. Come, old, we can't lose to these young juniors. Etion threw his head back and laughed wildly. Ha ha ha. Old High, the other academies can still count on reinforcements. How can we only count on a Dead Star Field great cultivator? A sea of clouds also laughed. Ha! I've already ordered that if we don't come out, Lan Ji will report this matter to Zhongxinge. The other disciples are not allowed to enter this place. As for why I'm counting on that guy, ha ha ha, I don't have a choice. A sea of clouds couldn't help but stop smiling. If he's still alive, he'll definitely come. Etion walked to a sea of clouds and stopped smiling. He couldn't hide the sadness in his eyes. He handed the wine pot to a sea of clouds. Yes, in just a month, all of us gods and demons trusted that guy. I don't envy others when they have thousands of soldiers and horses. It's enough for us gods and demons to have him alone. It's a pity. Suddenly, Etion's eyes burned with flames. If we don't take revenge, we're not worthy of being gods and demons. Kill! A sea of clouds shouted angrily and rushed toward the army of the dead. Lu Chun was rushing toward the plains of the dead. The black dragons had led him a little too far away. Damn, how far is it? Lu Chun looked at the underworld compass, his face crumbling. These black dragons of the underworld had no intention to fight at all. They ran so far away the moment they came out. At this moment, he suddenly received a voice transmission. Lu Chun was surprised. The underworld couldn't send voice transmissions to the Yang world, so the only person who could send him a voice transmission was someone in the underworld. The voice transmission was from Sea of Clouds. Nameless, are you still alive? The abyss of myriad calamities. No one has survived since ancient times, but I still don't believe you're dead. If you're still alive, come to the plains of the dead and save the disciples. The voice transmission talisman also recorded the chaotic sounds of the surrounding battlefield. The surroundings were filled with shouting and killing. Someone's voice was especially prominent. Senior brother, I'll fight you bastards to the death. There was no doubt that the demonic academy had come to the underworld. At this moment, they were already fighting the army of the dead. Some people were already seriously injured. This time, the army of the dead was prepared. Moreover, it was a large-scale hunt, so there must be experts overseeing it. Thinking of the terrifying power of the army of the dead, Lu Chen's eyes widened. They're here. The map showed that he was still dozens of miles away from the plains of the dead, but at this moment, he couldn't care less about conserving his strength. Divine Demon Symbiosis, God of War Possession, Demon Transformation, Place of Death, Dragon Blood Boil. Lu Chun directly activated all kinds of enhancement skills. 3 lives Reincarnation. The skill cooldown was cancelled. Infinite night, instant shadows. With a loud bang, a huge crater appeared where Lu Chun was originally standing. A black figure suddenly disappeared from where he was standing. The battle on the plains of the dead was at a stalemate. Logically speaking, the Demonic Academy was the weakest of the three academies, but these monsters had endless tricks up their sleeves. All kinds of elemental attacks dazzled the eyes. They also had the most rare battle pets and puppets. The disciples of the other two academies couldn't help but be secretly shocked. How did these guys have so many treasures? And the quality was also extremely high. Was this something that a disciple of the lower house should have? Moreover, none of the divine demon disciples were weak in actual combat. Their attacks were unexpected, and their movements were extremely fast. For a moment, they became the ones that hurt the underworld the most. However, no matter how monstrous the disciples of the Demonic Academy were, there was one thing that couldn't be changed. This was the underworld. Their spiritual energy couldn't be replenished. Even if they had the ability to quickly recover their spiritual energy, it was essentially to absorb spiritual energy from the surroundings. However, the energy of the underworld was incompatible with their attributes, so there was no way to convert it. After all, the divine demon disciples' levels were low. Being able to hurt the underworld meant that their spiritual energy consumption was greater. After a long time, the divine demon disciples couldn't hold on any longer. Feng Lai had sent out elite disciples, but speaking of which, their actual combat ability was inferior to the divine demon disciples. Celestial Fortress was the strongest, but they also received special treatment from the army of the dead. The defense line of 2,000 people gradually began to shrink inward. The situation was getting worse for the three academies. At this moment, Grey Crow, Black Armor King, and Bai Yi screamed at the same time. Ark! The three members of Grey Crow's team were thrown more than 10 meters away and couldn't get up. Yazzie sneered. In front of my underworld critical strike, there is no meat shield to speak of. As long as you fight with me, regardless of whether you are attacking me or being attacked by me, you will be stacked with underworld critical strike. When I fight with you, I can make countless mistakes, but you can't even make one. Senior, Yi Fan saw Yazzie shooting a hidden weapon at Black Armor King. He was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He hurriedly shot out a shadow, sword to protect himself. However, at this moment, a blade suddenly flashed behind him. The Grim Reaper's scythe doesn't only rely on your eyes to determine the location. Your voice gave you away. A voice came from behind Yi Fan. Chapter 1028. Watch out, Yi Fan! Chu Tian shouted from afar, and a sword chi shot toward Yi Fan. Yi Fan reacted quickly and dodged the attack by teleporting away. However, the sickle still made a wound on Yi Fan's neck that was more than 10 centimeters long, and Yi Fan's blood gushed out. The situation of the battle took a turn for the worse. Whether it was the four groups that were fighting against the four masters or the battle at the back, the three academies were all at a disadvantage. Hundreds of people were seriously injured. If the army of the dead didn't kill them, some of them would have been killed. It's over. We have no chance of winning. He Xing looked at the battlefield, and his eyes were full of loneliness. Was the 1,000-year foundation of the Celestial Fortress and the World Edge Pavilion going to be ruined in his hands? Don't get caught up in the fight. Run. He Xing roared. At this moment, Kumu walked over slowly. Do you think it's possible to run? The fat spirit envoy followed him. Seeing you guys play for so long, my hands are itchy, so I came to play with you guys. After the underworld was unified by the King of Hell, the Demon Lord, the days were really boring. The ghost-masked woman walked toward the battlefield with enchanting steps. Forget it, I'll play too. After that, the three of them sped up and turned into 3 clouds of black fog, rushing toward the battlefield from hundreds of meters away. In a sea of clouds, Yi Tian, Yao He, and He Xing saw this scene and couldn't help but feel nervous. The 3 spirit envoys attacked. Originally, they had no chance of winning. Now that the 3 spirit envoys joined the battle, they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Although they didn't give up resisting, they all had the same thought, that the battle was going to end soon. 100 miles, Dark Crow. As soon as Mu finished his words, a large amount of black fog rushed into the crowd of the three academies, and the black fog turned into crows. A disciple hit the crows with an iron hammer, but the crows quickly disintegrated into fog and then quickly condensed in front of him and pecked at the disciple's wrist. The disciple's defense was broken, and a big hole was pierced through his wrist. The seemingly harmless crows actually had such a terrifying attack power, and there were so many of them that it was difficult to defend against them. Shrink your defense. A sea of clouds roared. Everyone hurriedly retreated. However, at this moment, another black shadow descended from the sky and directly bombarded the ground. The huge earthquake directly scattered the defensive formation of the three academies. Might King shakes the earth. Boom! The 1,000-pound hammer in the fat spirit envoy's hand smashed onto the ground, causing the ground to tumble like waves. Damn, what kind of power is this? This guy is even stronger than the dead tree. Crane looked at the incoming waves. If they were hit by this wave, their defensive formation would be completely destroyed. However, they would not be able to defend against the army of the dead. Shield of Light. Crane forcefully activated a light-type defensive skill. However, this time, the opponent's skill hit the Shield of Light head-on. After a violent collision of spiritual energy, Crane Shing was sent flying and spat out several mouthfuls of blood. A disciple hurriedly used the crane to travel, but a black shadow suddenly appeared behind them. It was the ghost masked woman. Dismember. The woman smiled. Several thin threads of dark light flashed, and together with the disciple of the celestial pavilion who caught Crane Shing, both of their arms and legs were cut off. In just a moment, the three spirit envoys not only almost destroyed the defensive line of the three academies, but also severely injured the strongest among them. Crane Shing, for a moment, many people's minds were blank. This is the strength of a 2-star Ghost King. It's too fast. We can't even catch their movements. Their underworld power can directly break the defense of our war souls and cause damage to our bodies. And we can't break their defense directly. This is the underworld. We have no chance of winning. Not far away, the 100 ghosts and rainbow demons had already defeated 2 groups of people from the celestial fortress. Yazzie had severely injured the black armored king and the gray crow. Only Bai was still struggling. It was only a matter of time before she was defeated. Now, the only ones who still had some resistance were Yi Fan and the other 2. However, the wound on Yi Fan's neck kept bleeding. It was unknown what poison Ding Quang had smeared on his scythe, but the wound couldn't heal. His physical strength and life were quickly decreasing. In order to protect Yi Fan, Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan were fighting head-on with Ding Quang. At this time, they were also severely injured. Ding Quang swept out with a blow. Instead of retreating, Xiao Zhan rushed forward and attacked Ding Quang crazily. Chu Tian, take Yi Fan and run. Avenge us in the future. Xiao Zhan, I won't go. Get out of my way. Chu Tian, what do you want to do? Do you want to defeat all the army of the dead by yourself? You've already lost. Don't force yourself. Xiao Zhan's body was covered in flames. Ding Quang was also afraid of this, so he used this advantage to attack wildly. Run. Chu Tian gritted his teeth. Xiao Zhan was right. He did have a trump card, but so what? Could he kill all the army of the dead here? If the others could hold on, there might be hope. But now that they were all defeated, once they used up their last bit of spiritual energy, there would be no more hope. Xiao Zhan, senior brother, run. While Xiao Zhan was distracted, the death god's scythe suddenly produced illusions that attacked Xiao Zhan from dozens of directions. Xiao Zhan quickly dodged, but just as he landed, the death god's scythe's blade directly pierced through his chest. Xiao Zhan looked at the blade in his chest in disbelief. Junior brother! Chu Tian and Yi Fan's eyes were red as they screamed at the top of their lungs. Xiao Zhan couldn't hear them clearly. He vaguely heard Ding Quang's laughter. Ha ha ha. Here, we can make mistakes, but once you make a mistake, only death awaits you. This is a high-quality yang bag. Run, run. Xiao Zhan slowly fell down. He reached out his hand to urge Chu Tian and Yi Fan, but he saw the two of them explode with a shocking amount of spiritual energy. Senior brother and junior brother had gone berserk. Sigh. Those two fools knew that even if they used their trump cards, they wouldn't be able to turn the situation around, but they still didn't listen to me. Do they really want to die here? They're really stupid. As he fell down, Xiao Zhan saw the dark red sky above him. This was a netherworld. Here, their strength was greatly reduced. The power of his flames was also greatly reduced. Moreover, he couldn't recover his spiritual energy, and the other party could easily break through his defenses. In the end, he was still going to lose. Xiao Zhan, have been so powerful for so many years, but I've finally reached the end. Ding Quang probably didn't kill me, but I can't move at all. I'm just waiting to be captured. To Xiao Zhan, this was even more humiliating than being killed directly. Damn it. I can't even self-detonate my spiritual energy. In the netherworld, our spiritual energy is too limited. Just as he was about to close his eyes, he suddenly noticed that the color of the sky seemed to be changing slightly. The dark red sky became redder and redder, as if the sky was being ignited by flames. He narrowed his eyes slightly and saw a black dot rushing toward him at an incredible speed. After a while, he seemed to see more clearly. He was dressed in a long black robe with golden dragon patterns. His long robe fluttered in the wind. His white hair danced wildly behind him, and green smoke billowed out from both sides of his eyes. Dean! Xiao Zhan couldn't believe his eyes. Chapter 1029. Etion of a sea of clouds fought fiercely against Dead Tree, but the disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. Dead Tree was seriously injured and forced to retreat. Dead Tree was not in a hurry. He walked towards a sea of clouds, and Etion, your demonic academy is really interesting, but to be honest, your students are more courageous than your useless director. At least they dare to fight. Your director directly jumped off the cliff. He even needs a woman to protect him. What a joke. Etion helped a sea of clouds up and glared at Dead Tree. Seeing that the two were still unwilling to show weakness, Dead Tree smiled and shook his head. Your spirit is really impressive, but I'm very curious. What are you still holding on for? You said Celestial Fortress. They were still counting on others to support them. But your demonic academy, what else do you have? It's impossible for a person who can't see hope to have such a high fighting spirit. A sea of clouds said coldly, as long as there is one person in our demonic academy, there is hope. You mean the rest of your people? Dead Tree faintly smiled. Don't lie to yourself. The ones who came this time are the elites of your academy. You've seen the gap between us. Even you guys are so defeated. As for the rest of you, we can easily eliminate them. Even if you have thousands of soldiers and horses, you will die here. You have no chance at all. Dead Tree approached step by step. These two old guys don't have enough yang energy. It just so happens that my hands are itchy. It shouldn't be a problem to start a massacre. At this moment, in a sea of clouds, Etion suddenly saw a black dot in the sky. When they saw the black dot, the two were stunned for a moment at the same time. Then they looked at each other and suddenly laughed at the same time. Sure enough, Etion said, really, to be honest, I don't think that guy will die. Even if no one has survived since ancient times, but, haha, I just don't think he will die. A sea of clouds laughed, but tears fell from the corners of her eyes. Brat, you really worried us to death. That's right. I even secretly shed tears for him these past few nights. Now that I think about it, I've been deceived by that guy again. Do you think we have any hope now that he's here? Asked the sea of clouds. I don't think so, but who knows? Anyway, you know that you can't use common sense to judge that guy's strength, Etion said. But with the current situation, I really can't think of any solution. A sea of clouds shook his head. Etion said with a smile, in fact, the current demonic academy is not the real demonic academy. Only when he stands here, the demonic academy is the real demonic academy. In this regard, a sea of clouds was meaningless. Kumu, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. Why did these two old fellows suddenly change? The two of them were speaking in a language that he couldn't understand at all. Looking at their expressions, it was as if they were two completely different people. What nonsense are you talking about? Kumu felt like he was being treated as a fool and was extremely angry. A sea of clouds smiled slightly and said to Kumu, "You just asked that the Demonic Academy's disciples should have no hope in their hearts? I'm sorry, you're wrong. We always have a glimmer of hope in our hearts." Kumu said angrily, "You're all about to die. How can there be any hope? Even if thousands of troops come, they won't be able to save you." Etienne snorted coldly, "You're wrong. Others hope for thousands of troops, but we only hope for one person. A person that you said is a coward." As soon as Etienne finished speaking, the temperature of the entire Revenant plain suddenly rose. Then, a black shadow with flames all over its body fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. With a loud bang, the whole earth seemed to shake violently. The heat wave instantly swept across the whole place, shaking everyone back. When everyone turned to look at the center of the field, they saw a white-haired man, holding a silver spear, half squatting on the ground. His long hair fluttered in the wind. In this dark space, this touch of white was particularly eye-catching. There was a faint red liquid flowing inside the spear in his hand. It wasn't the red of blood, but the red of lava. Many female disciples of Fonlai saw this person and couldn't help but feel their brains short-circuit. "Oh my God, this is so handsome. He's much more handsome in real life than in the Shadow Stone. It's the nameless director of the Demonic Academy. Isn't he dead?" The people of Celestial Fortress also looked at Lu Chun. In the Shadow Stone, they clearly saw Ironwood and the others, but they were actually willing to stay behind to protect this person. This originally didn't make sense. What was so good about this person that Ironwood and the other high-level Theo the Great were willing to stay behind to protect him? However, there seemed to be some clues now. Didn't he fall into the abyss of calamity? Even the army of the dead doesn't dare to go into the abyss of calamity. How could he come out alive? What level is he? Why is his spiritual power so strong? The most excited people were none other than the disciples of the Demonic Academy. "Director." Hundreds of Divine Demon disciples looked at the white-haired man in shock. "The director isn't dead. He's back." Lu Chun slowly stood up and adjusted the badge on his chest. 7-star Field Great Cultivator. How did the Nameless level up? A sea of clouds was astonished. This guy had been in the Demonic Academy for so long, as if he was a 1-star Great Cultivator, but he had leveled up in just 10 days? Oh my God, the director leveled up. He went from a 1-star Great Cultivator to a 7-star Great Cultivator. No way, this is too terrifying. The people of Celestial Fortress were at a loss. Was it so difficult to level up from a 1-star Great Cultivator to a 7-star Great Cultivator? Was it worth being so shocked? "Hey, brother, is your director really only a 7-star Great Cultivator?" One of them asked the Divine Demon disciple next to him with a puzzled look. This person happened to be Xiao Zhan's good friend, Old Wine. He was shocked. "You don't know our director. Do you know how strong he is as a 7-star Great Cultivator?" The Celestial Fortress disciple wanted to say, "Sorry, I really don't know how strong a 7-star Great Cultivator is." Speaking of Great Cultivators, it was a long time ago. It was already a miracle to see a Great Cultivator in the 6th Celestial Layer. "He's actually a 1-star Great Cultivator," Old Wine reminded. 1-star Great Cultivator. That person was even more confused. Well, it seemed that he was indeed not on the same channel as the people of the Demonic Academy. He didn't know the difference between a nameless 7-star Great Cultivator and other 7-star Great Cultivators. At this time, Lu Chen's gaze swept across the whole place. He paused for a moment on Ironwood, Xiao Zhan, Mysterious Armor King, and the others. He suddenly raised his hand, and the triple door was all ears. He pulled Xiao Zhan aside. "Little Green." Lu Chun called out Little Green, and Little Green hurriedly checked Xiao Zhan's injuries. "Director, I'm sorry," Xiao Zhan said weakly. Lu Chun smiled at him. "Have a good rest." Leave the rest to me." After saying that, he sent Xiao Zhan to the demonic academy. Finally, Lu Chen's gaze fell on Ironwood. At this time, Ironwood had already turned into a mummy. His face was full of fear, and there were 10 eye-catching holes on both sides of his head. Lu Chen slowly walked towards Ironwood. "Arrogant, this is not a place where you can come close." Suddenly, a person came out from the side and rushed towards Lu Chen with a trident. Lu Chen slightly narrowed his eyes. He twisted his fingers, and the silver gallbladder suddenly turned into a hot red spear. Hot lava kept dripping from a spear. With a back attack, he flashed behind that person, and the spear ignored his defense and pierced his chest. That person's face was full of shock. This is underworld earth fire." As he spoke, his entire body turned into black charcoal. Seeing this scene, the army of the dead couldn't be more shocked. The abyss of myriad calamities was enough to make all the races of the underworld fear. Falling into the abyss meant eternal damnation. Even one's soul consciousness would be burned to ashes. And that man had crawled out of the abyss of myriad calamities, and he also had underworld earth fire, which was enough to make the underworld fear. Lu Chen came in front of Ironwood. Looking at the tragic death of Ironwood, green smoke billowed out of his eyes. He lowered his head slightly and said in a trembling voice, "Big brother Ironwood, I'm sorry." Gradually, billowing flames appeared around him. The temperature of the entire plains of the dead suddenly rose. Some people's feet were already burning. Lu Chen turned and walked towards the tens of thousands of army of the dead in front of him. The Yin and Yang realms have always minded their own business, but since you've crossed the line, don't blame me, the solipsistic, for being rude. Chapter 10:30. Tens of thousands of army of the dead for experts and 3 spirit envoys. Lu Chen's eyes were filled with killing intent. "Since you've crossed the line, I can only flatten the underworld." Xiao Zhan's wound, which had just been stopped, started bleeding again. As expected of the dean, the smell was familiar. He Xing's eyes widened. This guy? This is the underworld. He's just a great cultivator. Is he crazy?" Suddenly, Lu Chen looked at Yi Xing, which startled him. That guy's eyes were too scary. They were burning with green flames, as if they wanted to eat someone. "Who killed Brother Ironwood?" Yi Xing finally reacted and said, "It's him, Ding Quang." Lu Chen turned his head and looked at Ding Quang. Yi Xing was relieved. But after thinking about it, he suddenly realized something. The guy just glanced at him, and he felt an incomparable pressure. Even his back was wet. He didn't feel this way even when he was fighting with the 3 spirit envoys. This guy was just a 7-star great cultivator. How could he have such a terrifying pressure? Lu Chen turned his head and looked at Ding Quang. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Not only did this guy seriously injure Xiao Zhan, but he was also Ironwood's murderer. "You will be buried with Brother Ironwood." Ding Quang narrowed his eyes and snorted. "Solipsistic? Your name also has the word Quang in it. Well, let me tell you, no one dares to be arrogant in front of me." In the next second, Lu Chen and Ding Quang moved at the same time. The long spear in his hand spun, and lava flew out of the spear. Now the silver gallbladder had turned into the hellfire silver gallbladder. Ding Quang's figure suddenly disappeared. Ding Quang was not inferior. He used the death space and disappeared. After a moment, when the two met, they appeared at the same time. Way of the spear, star shattering. The flame spear was as fast as thunder and pointed at Ding Quang's forehead. Ding Quang snorted and disappeared instantly. At the same time, he waved his scythe. Lu Chen quickly dodged. Not good. Ding Quang's previous moves were all feints. His killing move is coming. Sure enough, although Lu Chen dodged Ding Quang's sickle, the blade suddenly disappeared and then mysteriously reappeared behind Lu Chen. Reaper's Harvest. The tip of the saber suddenly enlarged and formed a saber energy. From a very close distance, it pierced towards Lu Chen's back. Lu Chen made his move at almost the same time. Triple Gate. Way of the spear, shattering stars. Although the Grim Reaper's scythe was fast, it was still a horizontal sweep. However, the netherworld fire silver gallbladder was a straight thrust, so its speed was even faster. With a puff, the scalding hot spear pierced straight into Ding Quang's mouth. In an instant, the death god's scythe became weak and powerless. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Chun dodged the attack and arrived in front of Ding Quang in the blink of an eye. Ding Quang's entire chin had melted, leaving only broken bones. Every drop of lava dripping from the silver gallbladder could melt his body. Now, he was the only one who stared at Lu Chun with a pair of extremely frightened eyes. In less than a moment, Ding Quang's body was completely melted and evaporated by the lava, turning into ashes. Lu Chun gently closed his eyes, his lips trembling. This time, he didn't make the same mistake. Ding Quang didn't even have the chance to turn into a ghost. He couldn't be more dead. "Brother Ironwood, I've avenged you." Lu Chun pulled out the Hellfire Silver Gallbladder and turned to look at all the enemies. At this moment, whether it was the army of the dead or the disciples of the three academies, they were all shocked, speechless. That Ding Quang was killed in seconds just like that. The combination of the Triple Gate and Shatterstar is a technique that simulates a spatial skill. How can it be faster than a real spatial skill? It's formless. Yixing's eyes widened. No, it's not just formless. It's also the weapon's attacking method, reaction time, prediction ability, attack speed, and so on. The disciple who had turned into a human stick with him hurriedly asked, "Pavilion Master, what's going on?" Although Ding Quang made the first move, Lone Tyrant's reaction was simply too fast. He immediately locked onto Ding Quang's position. Perhaps he also predicted Ding Quang's movements, but in any case, he managed to locate Ding Quang in the shortest amount of time possible. He did his best to shorten the time gap between them. Solipsistic's Formless is extremely skilled. The combination of the two skills is flawless. Although it's a fake spatial skill, it's comparable to a real spatial skill. On this basis, what determines the outcome of the battle is the details. The Death Scythe uses a horizontal slash and an arc trajectory, but Solipsistic's spear uses a straight thrust, so it's faster. That's one of the reasons. Secondly, Ding Quang didn't use his full strength because he didn't use his full strength. However, Solipsistic might be too confident in himself. He used his full strength and didn't leave any way out. Thirdly, and most importantly, it seems that Ding Quang's actions are all within Solipsistic's calculations. In this way, Ding Quang can't dodge the Shatterer, but Solipsistic can dodge the Death Scythe. The disciple next to him was stunned. Although the battle between the two only lasted for a moment, the battle of wits and courage was far beyond his imagination. Is this a battle between top masters? Crane narrowed his eyes. If Lone Tyrant isn't a genius with extraordinary talent, then he must have experienced countless life and death battles to be able to execute his combat techniques to such perfection. But Pavilion Master, he actually broke through his opponent's soul-body fusion defense. His flame seems to be different from ordinary people's. It directly burned the soul consciousness of a dead soul. Yes, I noticed that too. Considering that he once fell into the abyss of calamity, I think he must have returned to the battlefield from the hell of hell with the fury of that place. Yixing said angrily. Ironwood and the others didn't make a wrong judgment. They put their hopes on this boy. He's our only hope. Little Ming, keep our hands and feet well. If we can escape this time, we can still reattach them. Yes, Pavilion Master. On the side of the army of the dead, the three spirit envoys finally began to take this white-haired man seriously. Dead Tree narrowed his eyes. You killed Ding Quang with one move? Solipsistic, you've really impressed me. Fat Spirit Envoy walked over. It seems that the abyss of calamity didn't kill you. It seems that you've gained some amazing ability. The underworld, fire. That thing didn't kill you? I'm really curious as to how you managed to survive. Yiksha licked the curved dagger in her hand and walked to her companion. Interesting. Finally, there's a prey that can make me excited. Solipsistic, you've successfully aroused my interest. Lu Chun looked indifferently at the three spirit envoys. Then he looked past them and looked at the remaining 3 masters of the army of the dead. Let me ask you, where is Li Wei? Chapter 1031. Li Wei? Oh, you mean that woman from the Heavenly Fox clan? Yiksha sneered. Lu Chen frowned slightly. Li Wei told him that she was from the Fox clan. When did she become a Heavenly Fox clan? There are thousands of clans in the Jiuqian, so they were often not the same clan. For example, the Human clan and the Dragon clan. One was a weak clan, while the other was an upper-middle clan. The Demon clan and the Heavenly Demon clan. One was a super strong clan, while the other was an upper-middle clan. But no matter whether Li Wei was from the Fox clan or the Heavenly Fox clan, Lu Chun had to find her. If she was alive, he wanted to see her. Where is she? You want to know? Then we'll talk about it after you beat us. I don't believe that you, a 7-star great cultivator, can fight with a 2-star ghost king. The Yiksha opened its horrifying mouth and stuck out its long tongue to lick the dagger. After I capture you, I'll definitely ask the Soul King to bestow you to me. Your yang energy, I suddenly want to find another way to suck it dry. Lu Chun said lightly, I don't want to waste time. All of you come at me together. Xiao Zhan's wound had just opened, but it opened again. Lu Yi looked at Xiao Zhan angrily. Hey, can you stop moving? Miss Lu, I don't want to move either, but did you hear what the dean said? Xiao Zhan couldn't stay calm. I heard it. Is it strange? That's because you haven't seen the dean fight. He used to be like this. Lu Yi said matter-of-factly. You will get used to it. Okay, stop moving. I don't have any extra medicine for you. There are many wounded over there. Kumu narrowed his eyes. Together? You are really arrogant. How can you? Before he finished his words, Lu Chun had already moved. Since they were unwilling to fight together, he had to do it himself. Wings of the Blood Demon. Lu Chen's figure rushed to the sky. He floated in the air and looked down at the tens of thousands of army of the dead. The bright fire-silver bladder hung beside him. His hands turned into claws and lifted up. Oh no, he's an elementalist. At this moment, the 3 spirit envoys finally realized that something was wrong. Combined with the fact that Lu Chen's fire element possessed the fire attribute of the underworld, which could restrain the souls of the dead, the 3 of them knew that they must not let this guy use the energy-storing spell. 3 great spirit envoys, 3 great experts, madly rushed towards Lu Chun at the same time. Among these 6 people, 3 were 2-star ghost kings, while the other 3 were 9-star great spectral cultivator. Their explosive speed was unimaginably fast, and they instantly appeared beside Lu Chun. 6 people attacked at the same time. 9-headed ghost chariot. The dead tree suddenly transformed into a 9-headed bird spirit and attacked. Heaven-breaking hammer. 81 flash. Yazi, 100 ghosts, and Rainbow Demon followed closely behind and attacked at the same time. 6 super powerhouses simultaneously besieged Lu Chun, who was in the midst of accumulating power. At this time, Lu Chun suddenly shouted, Soul and body is one. Void Guard. His right arm instantly demonized, and at the same time, a black gas shield completely enveloped Lu Chun. At this time, Lu Chen's Void Guard's defensive power had reached a terrifying 120 billion. As long as the attack did not exceed this level, it would not be able to break through the Void Guard. 6 great killing moves actually could not break through the Void Guard. Impossible. What kind of shield is this? Our accumulated damage is already incalculable. Why can't we break through the shield? His spirit core is not right. Why is his shield able to block our attacks in the underworld? Spirit core? Lu Chun had a chaos spirit core, which could not be suppressed by any type, even in the underworld. In the underworld, the souls of the dead had an advantage over other cultivators, but in front of Lu Chun, they did not have the slightest advantage. No, this shield is not the same as ordinary shields. It must be a single high attack skill. These people were worthy of being called experts. They quickly discovered the difference in the Void Guard and adjusted their tactics. Lu Chun snorted, You know it too late. Go to hell. Raging flames burning the sky, star burning. Lu Chun directly used the second level of raging flames burning the sky, star burning. Suddenly, the ground of the Dead Soul Plain collapsed. The earth shook, and the ground caved in. Then, the underground lava spewed out from the cracks everywhere. At first glance, except for the location of the 3 academies and the 11 iron pillars, the whole area was set up with shocking lava pillars. As far as the eye could see, the rolling lava was evenly distributed, connecting the sky and the earth. Seeing this scene, Kumu and the others were shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. This guy, the whole area was blown up in an instant. The lava soared to the sky, at least 100 meters high, and flooded the whole area. Under such a dense attack, the tens of thousands of Army of the Dead were instantly drowned by the geocentric lava. The screams below were endless. Even the souls of the dead were afraid of the geocentric lava. With a large number of hellhounds, the Army of the Dead had no time to escape. Even if a few experts could avoid the eruption of lava, where was there a place to hide in the lava? Not long after, the tens of thousands of Army of the Dead had been turned into charcoal and were taken away by the lava. This is... Kumu trembled all over. He had seen group attack skills, but the scary thing was that this guy's group attack was too terrifying. Whether it was the explosive strength, speed, range, or the types of fire elements, it was unimaginably terrifying. There were only tens of thousands of Army of the Dead here. Even if there were hundreds of thousands or millions, if no one could subdue this guy, he would directly destroy the whole army in one move. Impossible. Impossible. How much is your flame affinity, and how much is your battle soul's spiritual power? The fat spirit envoy looked at Lu Chun in disbelief. It had to be known that the more powerful the skill, the higher the requirements, and the greater the consumption of spiritual energy. The earth fire could indeed restrain the souls of the dead, but no one could really control the earth fire. One of the reasons was the lack of flame affinity. Lu Chun snorted. Now is not the time for me to answer your questions. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me, where is Li Wei? And I'll leave your corpses intact. The 6 of them didn't dare to be careless anymore. They retreated to a corner and stared at Lu Chun. Lu Chun raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Lu Chen's eyes were fierce. Not going to talk? Don't worry, I have a way to make you talk. After saying that, Lu Chun took out the bright fire silver guts. Kumu's eyelids twitched, and he stared at Lu Chun. Such a strong elemental mage, and such a terrifying close combat ability. What kind of monster is this guy? On the side of the 3rd Academy, the surrounding area was surrounded by lava, forming an isolated island. Those who could still fight were resisting the lava. They weren't particularly afraid of the underworld's earth fire, but they still needed to be careful in such a high temperature. Chu Tian walked to Xiao Zhan and shook his head. Hey, how much do you think the Dean's flame affinity is? Xiao Zhan and Yi Fan were good at using fire, especially Xiao Zhan, whose main attack was flames. At least 2,000 and above, Xiao Zhan said. As you can see, the temperature of the underworld's earth fire is very high. It can burn the soul. If you want to control this kind of fire, you'll be burnt to a crisp if you don't have 2,000 points. Then how much do you have? Chu Tian asked. 1,700. It's actually that high? Chu Tian looked at Xiao Zhan in surprise. Hey, senior brother, I specialize in the fire element, okay? You also know that increasing elemental affinity is very difficult. Not only do you need to be compatible with your spirit pill, you also need to cultivate. I cultivated for a long time in several strange fire sources before I reached this high elemental affinity. Before meeting the Dean, I've never seen anyone with a higher elemental affinity than me. Even Yi Fan isn't as high as me. Xiao Zhan was convinced. He was already like this, but his senior brother still came over to laugh at him. If you have the ability, go and compete with the Dean. People say that we're geniuses, but the Dean isn't human. How much is your earth elemental affinity? 1,800, Chu Tian said proudly. Chapter 1032. At this time, Kumu and the others already knew how powerful Lu Chun was, so they didn't dare to be careless and began to attack Luchin together. However, the emptiness of God's and Demon's arm was not to be trifled with. His defense was impregnable, and several continuous attacks could not break through his defense. To break his defense, we must use a joint skill. Yiksha shouted. The fat spirit envoy smashed his hammer toward Luchin. Although it couldn't hurt Luchin's body, it still shook him back. Then the 6 people behind him gathered their power at the same time. Lone Tyrant, have a taste of this move. Joint skill, Yushin War Soul. Suddenly, the black gas on the 6 people all gathered on Yiksha. Luchin frowned slightly. Did they temporarily transfer the power of the War Soul to that woman? Yiksha was the most mysterious one among these people. He should be a shadow assassin. His explosive power was quite high, and, combined with the spiritual power of everyone, it was enough to pose a threat to him. Go to hell, solipsistic. Instant shadow raid. The 6 people seemed to be familiar with each other, and it didn't take long for them to gather their power. The other 5 people kept a small amount of spiritual power, but Yiksha's strength increased greatly, and he disappeared in an instant. Luchin's mind raced. Did that guy use Assassin's astral form, or a space-type skill? Why did he disappear without a trace? Divine Devil Astral Form. Luchin launched the astral form skill, but he didn't force Yiksha's body out. Heaven's Eye. Luchin quickly opened Heaven's Eye, trying to infer Yiksha's whereabouts from the changes in the surrounding spiritual power. However, Heaven's Eye didn't find any special spiritual power in the surroundings. Yiksha seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Impossible. All skills are related to spiritual power. Luchin's mind raced. It seemed that Yiksha wouldn't give him enough time to figure it out. Luchin temporarily exposed a flaw behind him. Sure enough, at the moment his flaw appeared, a black shadow appeared behind him. Joint skill, Death of the Dead. Luchin flashed a cold light behind him. Go to hell, solipsistic. To be able to lock his divine devil astral form. So far, only Chongming could do this. Whether Yiksha used a high-level astral form or a space-type skill, at least Luchin couldn't find a way to deal with her. This attack was extremely fast and sudden. It appeared behind Luchin almost instantaneously. Even Luchin was unable to completely avoid this attack. The dagger directly broke through Luchin's void guard. In the nick of time, Luchin quickly swung his spear backwards. Spear Wei Sky Spear. Although Luchin was half a step slower and his void guard was broken, his subsequent counterattack also forced Yiksha to not dare to pursue. After the void guard was broken, the huge impact directly blasted Luchin from midair to the ground. Of course, at this time, except for a small area on the ground, the magma had spread. Luchin directly fell into the magma like a cannonball, splashing a large amount of magma. Success! Yiksha and the others found a way to break the void guard and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. This void guard is too strange. As long as a single attack can't break the shield, it will always exist. It's really abnormal. Dead Tree shook his head and said, they had never seen this kind of shield before. I don't know if he can survive in the magma. Dead Tree said, controlling the earth fire doesn't mean he can withstand it. Then let him die under his own skill. Only Yiksha frowned. He deliberately showed a flaw just now to lure me to attack. Otherwise, I could have taken his life just now. Perhaps only the person involved knew that solipsistic had reduced the damage to the minimum. The situation that could have been directly killed had now become confusing. From his point of view, the solipsistic still won the fight just now. What? He deliberately left a flaw. Fat Spirit Envoy frowned. This guy's combat experience is beyond our imagination. Even if he couldn't find a way to break our combined skill, he still thought of a way to minimize the damage at the first moment. This guy is a bit tricky. Dead Tree had to put away his joy after hearing this and looked at the magma underground again. Next time, we must not fall into his trap, Yiksha said fiercely. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone saw the magma below begin to bubble from the bottom. The whole magma pool, like boiling water, began to become restless. Not long after, a figure slowly rose from the magma. Compared to the hot magma, Lu Chen's eyes and smile were so cold. Next time? Sorry, there won't be a next time. After saying that, a long sword slowly appeared beside Lu Chen. Infinite divine demon sword. 9 steps in the void. Lu Chen teleported from the ground to the sky. In the process of movement, Lu Chen shouted in a low voice, "Tiger descends the mountain. Sacred Lotus, Sword Heart. 2160 Sword Chi, swift but not chaotic, attacked the 6 people in the sky at the same time." Seeing this scene, the people from Celestial Fortress and Fonlai Academy were completely confused. Wait, what is his class? Isn't he an elemental mage and close combat fighter? Those 2 classes were already so powerful when he used them. Why can he still use Sword Chi to attack? Triple cultivation? But aren't these 3 classes a little too strong? That Sword Chi is endless. The spirit envoys can only dodge. Elemental Mage has Sky Burning Flame. Fighter has Spear Dao, and Sword Controlling has Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. This guy is good at both short and long range. He's a triple cultivator. Hixing couldn't help but sigh. What an amazing person. Our Tianyao Pavilion. No, our Celestial Fortress hasn't had such an all-round monster for many years. This guy, I'm afraid he's rarely matched in the level 6. Yi Fan and Chu Tian stood in front of Xiao Zhan. The 3 of them didn't dare to miss such a wonderful fight. The Dean can really crush the 3 of us. Xiao Zhan sighed. If he wasn't the Dean and a newcomer in the same batch, we wouldn't be able to raise our heads. Chu Tian nodded and said, "We've always been called monsters by others, but now that we've seen the Dean, we know that this guy is the real monster." Yi Fan said calmly, "If it weren't for such a Dean, how could the Demonic Academy accommodate so many geniuses? I think everyone wants to surpass that guy." Yi Fan's words really hit the spot in Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan's hearts. Even though they felt that their strength was not as good as Lu Chen's, they didn't admit defeat. Maybe this was the common characteristic of geniuses. At this moment, Yi Fan suddenly found that Lu Chen's figure slowed down. Oh no, the Dean's physical strength is depleted. Hearing about the physical strength depletion, everyone was suddenly awakened. That's right, the Dean's biggest problem is his weak body. Even though his level had increased and his physical attributes had increased dozens of times, Lu Chen had been rushing like crazy and continuously using powerful skills such as Star Burning, Spear Way, Void Guarding, and Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. His physical strength was not enough for him to continue fighting for a long time. However, although Lu Chen's speed had slowed down, he still rushed toward the 6 of them, especially when he focused his attacks on the Yiksha. She was the key now. Nameless. Can he kill the Yiksha? Etian stared nervously at the 7 figures in the air. Chapter 1033. Victory or defeat would be decided at this moment, but Yiksha's figure was ethereal, and Lu Chen's physical strength was obviously weakened. Your Sacred Lotus Sword Heart is powerful, but unfortunately, it's not that easy to hit us. Yiksha calmly dodged a few sword auras and sneered. Solipsistic, it seems that you've reached the end of your life. Then I'll send you on your way. After saying that, Yiksha's figure disappeared again. But at this moment, Lu Chen's arms suddenly flashed with a golden light. Upon closer inspection, it was Lu Chen's mutated dragon species. Others didn't know what was going on, but the people of the Demonic Academy knew that the president had used all his strength for the last attack. Had he already launched the last attack? But there were still 6 opponents. Yiksha disappeared and hid somewhere, waiting for an opportunity to move. The other 5 people collectively defended heavily. Suddenly, Lu Chen directly withdrew his sword and stopped the Sacred Lotus Sword Heart. At the same time, he shot toward the 5 people. Mutated Dragon Crystal. Void Attack, Void Shattering. After the Divine Demon Origin cultivation method was upgraded to the 6th level, both Void Attack and Void Defense were strengthened, and Void Attack became an area attack. This move, void-shattering, could attack these 5 people at the same time. Kumu and the other 4 looked at Lu Chun in horror. This time, it was the terrifying Great Void Arm again. However, this time, the Great Void Arm was no longer defending. Instead, it exploded with shocking power and attacked the 5 of them. Seeing that Lu Chun had already punched, suddenly, a figure flashed by Lu Chen's side. However, before the person next to him could react, Lu Chun suddenly changed his move. He turned around in midair and shouted angrily, "I said there won't be a next time. Mutated Dragon Crystal. Sky-breaking sword." Yiksha never dreamed that Lu Chun could actually stop and change his move in the instant he attacked. It must be known that forcibly stopping a move would cause great damage to the body. Some people could even directly send themselves flying by forcefully stopping a move. The power of void attack, void shattering, could be inferred from the aftermath of the eruption of spiritual power. It was definitely not an ordinary move or a move that could cause ordinary damage. If it wasn't for the fact that the safety of Kumu and the other 4 was really endangered, Yiksha wouldn't have shown up at all. For an expert like her, how could ordinary feints fool her? The only answer was that Solipsistic had really mobilized a huge amount of spiritual energy to deliver this fatal blow. Not to mention using a completely different sword move after forcefully withdrawing the move. In other words, he had changed the flow of spiritual power in his body in the nick of time. He had directly converted the spiritual power he had used to shatter the void to attack the 5 of them into the spiritual power he needed to use to crush the heavens. This move was as fast as lightning. With a flash of white light, Lu Chun was already 100 meters behind Yiksha. As for Yiksha, who had always been known for his speed, he didn't even have time to attack. In an instant, the 7 people in the air and even the entire battlefield fell silent. After a long time, Yiksha slowly turned around and looked at the man's back in shock, only to see him calmly complete the standard ending movement. You can actually use Wu Shi to such a level of perfection. Lu Chun turned around and raised the long sword in his hand. The blade of the long sword was shockingly suffused with a faint red light. In a previous sword move, Lu Chun had added the fire element of the underworld. Previously, he had let a soul escape. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Seeing that sword, Yiksha had already lost all hope. At this moment, she also felt that her body was beginning to heat up. Solipsistic, you are very strong, but you still can't stop the iron hooves of the underworld army from trampling your world. Lu Chun looked at Yiksha indifferently. It seems that until now, you still don't understand why you will die. You attacked the world of the living? Actually, I don't care, just like I can't stop all wars. But your mistake is to offend me. As soon as his voice fell, Yiksha's face showed an extremely painful expression. Her rotten lower jaw was almost propped open by her own hands. Then, her body began to rapidly blacken from the inside out until she turned into black charcoal and fell from the sky. With a boom, the ground directly split open a kilometer-long crack. The endless stream of magma finally found an exit and flowed down along the crack. On the side of the celestial fortress, many people were so shocked that they were petrified. I don't understand. I only know that there must be something wrong with this guy's level. How can a 7-star Grand Cultivator have the power to split open a mountain? Could it be because of the word wild? He's the most exaggerated person I've ever seen in using the formless technique. Or rather, from the very beginning, he had thought that Yiksha would definitely come to his rescue, so he was prepared to change his move. In the magma, he had already come up with a set of countermeasures. First, he pretended to attack Kumu and the others. Then he killed Yiksha, who came to his rescue. However, even now, I still find it hard to believe that the void-shattering technique was a fake move. Yixing suddenly sighed. Maybe it wasn't a fake move at all. What? Tower Master, you're saying that the void-shattering technique wasn't a fake move? Yixing nodded. Solipsistic made 2 preparations. If Yiksha didn't come to his rescue, he would kill Kumu and the others. If Yiksha came to his rescue, he would kill him instantly. Therefore, solipsistic's void-shattering technique could fool Yiksha, because it was real. However, it's really incredible to be able to control the spiritual energy in his body to such an extent. This is not something that only formless technique can do. If I'm not wrong, he should be able to control his spiritual energy in the minute or even selfless state. Only by focusing all his attention on this attack, even forgetting himself, could he make such an incredible attack. After listening to the Tower Master's explanation, everyone finally understood why he sighed. Just the change just now was enough for them to try many times, and they might not even have the chance to understand it. At this time, although Lu Chen's face was pale and bloodless, Ku Mu and the others weren't in a good situation either. After launching the joint skill and lending their spiritual energy to Yiksha, their strength had been greatly reduced. After seeing Lu Chen's methods several times, even if they saw Lu Chen flying in the air, they were still a little shaky. None of the 5 people dared to move. Lu Chen looked at the 5 of them. I'll ask again, where is Li Wei? Thinking of that woman, Lu Chen's heart ached. In order to save the 2 disciples of the demonic academy, she went to the secret passage alone. In order to protect Lu Chen, she was willing to sacrifice herself. Along the way, Lu Chen was saving people, but this woman was in danger to save him. Regardless of the favor, as long as she was still alive, Lu Chen would definitely save her. Solipsistic, you're very strong, but so what? Ku Mu glared at Lu Chen. In the underworld, the Dead Soul City is the weakest, and you only defeated tens of thousands of army of the dead and defeated the spirit envoys of the Dead Soul City. If the Soul King of the Dead Soul City comes, you can't even take one move. Not to mention Ghost Soldier City, Nightmare City, and the King of Hell's Palace. I'm not afraid to tell you that the woman you're talking about has been sent to the King of Hell's Palace. Let's see if you have the ability to save her. Yazi said fiercely, I know you won't let us go, but your woman can't escape misfortune. Remember, if the King of Hell wants you to die at midnight, no one will let you live until midnight. Lu Chen snorted. If so, the problem is very simple. I can only kill the King of Hell. Chapter 1034. Old C, I'll leave these 5 people to you. Remember, don't kill them. You're not easy to kill. After Lu Chen finished speaking, he swooped back to the ground. Lu Chen had no strength to fight, but the strength of Ku Mu and the others had plummeted, so he didn't need to do anything. The powerhouses of the 3 academies were already hungry and thirsty. A large group of people rushed out of the 3 academies and beat them up. The 3 great masters and 3 great spirit envoys were doomed to be beaten up. At this time, the hostages on the Iron Pillar had been rescued. Looking back, the whole ghost plane had been changed beyond recognition. There were traces of flowing magma everywhere. Huge cracks opened up a big hole in the plane, and magma was still flowing into the abyss. As soon as Lu Chen came back, he was surrounded by a group of people. Dean, great, you're still alive. Don't push. The Dean is too tired. A sea of clouds walked to Lu Chen. After Lu Chen saw him, he said to a sea of clouds, Old Sea, I can't fight now. We have to leave the underworld for the time being. At this time, the people of the celestial fortress made way, and an old man walked forward. Hearing that the disciples of the demonic academy called him Nameless Dean, he hesitated and followed suit. Nameless Dean, our pavilion master wants to invite you over for a chat. His hands and feet are cut off, so it's really inconvenient. Lu Chen nodded. With the help of Etion and a sea of clouds, he came to Hixing. Although Hixing was seriously injured, his hands and feet were saved, but it seemed that he needed time to recover. Nameless little brother, I'm Hixing, the pavilion master of the Tianya Pavilion in the Celestial Fortress. I'm also the master of Ironwood. Lu Chen clasped his hands and said, Pavilion Master Hixing, I'm sorry for what happened to Brother Ironwood. Hixing sighed. Let's talk about that later. We have important matters to discuss in the Netherworld. I can see that little brother Nameless isn't in a good state, so we shouldn't stay here for long. We need to leave the Netherworld as soon as possible. However, The flourishing Source continent and the Azure Marsh continent are very far apart. If we go back on our own, it'll be very difficult for us to discuss this matter together. I think that if it's possible, we should invite little brother Nameless to my Azure Marsh continent. Luchin frowned. It would be best for him to return to the Demonic Academy. But on the other hand, the Demonic Academy could only be regarded as famous in the Shungza mainland, but not prestigious. The opening of the gate to the underworld was not something that the Demonic Academy alone could stop. However, the Celestial Fortress was different. Their status in the Azure Marsh continent was similar to that of the Zhongxingo. They could be regarded as the headquarters of the Azure Marsh continent, so they definitely had a say. Little brother Nameless, I know that you want to return to the Demonic Academy. After all, the Demonic Academy is also damaged, but Yixing saw that Lu Qian was hesitating and continued. But if the Netherworld really invades the Yang world, it's not just a matter of our 3 academies. Little brother Nameless, this matter indeed requires us to work together to deal with. Besides, even if we don't gain anything, Yixing, can guarantee that I will definitely send little brother Nameless back to the flourishing Source continent. Lu Qian thought for a while and finally nodded. Okay, I'll go with you. Brother Ironwood died for me, so I must settle this account with them. Escort the nameless army of the dead back to the Celestial Fortress. Yao also walked over. Senior Yixing, if you don't mind me being a burden, I would also like to go with you. Li Wei is my good sister. I won't give up until I find her. Lu Qian looked at Yao He and said, Dean Yao He, as long as Li Wei is still alive, I will definitely save her. Yixing also said, then please leave with us. Everyone needs to move quickly in case their reinforcements arrive. Just now, the commotion here wasn't small. According to the Spirit Envoy, their Soul King seems to be returning to the city. If we really encounter them, it will be very troublesome. Lu Qian quickly explained to a sea of clouds and the others, and reminded them to wait for his news. Then, he left with the Celestial Fortress. Lu Qian was just about to leave with the Celestial Fortress when Yi Fan and Chu Tian, carrying Xiao Zhan, quickly caught up with Lu Qian. Dean, senior uncle asked us to follow you, Yi Fan said as he helped Lu Qian up. As soon as he started, Yi Fan felt that his hand was heavy. It seemed that the dean was still forcing himself to hurry on, but in fact, he was already very weak. Lu Qian thought for a moment. It seemed that a sea of clouds and the others were worried about him. After all, he had almost no combat power now. All right, but it's fine if you two come, but what is Xiao Zhan doing here? Lu Qian looked at Xiao Zhan with a look of disgust. A sea of clouds didn't ask him to come, but Xiao Zhan insisted on following. I already told him that it's useless to bring a trash like him, but he just wouldn't listen. Chu Tian said honestly. Xiao Zhan was very embarrassed. Damn, you guys are too realistic. Yi Fan, I was injured to save you. I'm only injured now, I'm not dead yet. I'll be of use once I recover. Once you recover, I'll have to trouble you to carry me back to prosperous Origin Continent from the Azure Pond Continent. Chu Tian said in a bad mood. So heavy. It's fine if you wanted to carry a beauty, but carrying a fellow like you is really torturous. These 3 fellows, if they weren't bickering, they would feel uncomfortable all over. In order to prevent more army of the dead from coming, the 3 academies quickly brought their injured students, Celestial Fortress, and Ironwood's corpse to quickly retreat. Half an hour later, a 1,000,000-strong army of the dead rushed to the Spectre Plains. When they saw the mess here, they were all shocked. In the middle of the army, 2 single-horned black dragons were lying on the ground with a palanquin on their backs. A demon's soul jumped onto the dragon's back, came to the palanquin, and said softly, looking at the marks on the ground, they've been gone for a while. A low voice came from inside. Solipsistic actually climbed out of the myriad tribulation abyss and obtained the power of the underworld's earth fire. Humph. Interesting, Lord Soul King, should we chase? Or should this subordinate enter the Yang world and kill him? A faint voice came from inside. Chase. There's no need. We still have his women in our hands. I believe he'll come back sooner or later. Moreover, The Myriad Soul Palace is about to open. This is the most important thing. Nothing else can delay this matter. Now that the 3 soul envoys are dead or captured, I don't have many people I can use. Nightmare, you stay by my side. Yes. Nightmare accepts the order. Lu Chun and Yao, he each took a few disciples and followed the people of Celestial Fortress to their teleportation point. Ronger happened to be among them. At this time, she was humbly asking Yi Fan for advice. Yi Fan was focused on supporting Lu Chun and didn't seem to want to talk to Ronger. Ronger was a bit afraid of Lu Chun and didn't dare to ask. She ran back, looking quite aggrieved. Lu Chun frowned slightly. Yi Fan, that girl seems to like you. Yi Fan frowned. Dean, don't talk nonsense. Who would like someone like me? Lu Chun shook his head. Yi Fan, the dean is experienced. You have to trust my judgment. She definitely likes you. That girl isn't bad either. The academy won't object to the 2 of you dual cultivating. Really? Yi Fan looked at Lu Chun. Dean, if that's the case, you must have had many close female friends in the past. But how come I've never seen them before? Haha, close female friends. Well, how do I put it? AI, it's a long story. Lu Chun realized that his students weren't polite to him at all. They directly threw out such a sharp question, so he hurriedly avoided it. Fortunately, they quickly reached the exit. Azure Pond Continent. Lu Chun, Yi Fan, Chu Tian, and Xiao Zhan all let out a sigh. Their expressions were the same, filled with anticipation. Yaoi shook her head as she watched. If one were to say that Principal Nameless was ignorant, he was really no different from his students. He had never even left Prosper's Fountain before. Chapter 1035. Wu Xian and Skyfall followed the team of gods and demons back to the demonic academy. They didn't speak along the way. A sea of clouds saw them and walked to them. What's wrong? Are you being honest now? Skyfall lowered his head. Uncle, we harmed everyone. We harmed Senior Li Wei and Senior Ironwood. A sea of clouds smiled and patted Skyfall's shoulder. Although you 2 didn't say anything and directly entered the underworld, it's not all your fault. Etian also walked over. The gate to the underworld will open sooner or later. It's a good thing that you discovered it in time. This is a big deal for the whole 6th heaven. It's because you discovered it early that we had time to prepare. Moreover, the number of casualties is already the minimum. Wu Xian sighed. Uncle Etian, sigh. Now that Senior Li Wei's life is uncertain, Skyfall, and I can't absolve ourselves from the blame. A sea of clouds narrowed his eyes. Dean Li Wei is in danger because of our demonic academy. We will save her at all costs. But instead of blaming yourselves, it's better for you 2 to rest. I'm afraid that the war between the underworld and the Yang world is inevitable. At that time, I'll need your strength. Skyfall and Wu Xian looked at each other and nodded heavily. We'll do our best to redeem ourselves. The entrance to the underworld on the Qingzi continent was also deep underground. However, the entrance to the underworld was already guarded by hundreds of cultivators. Since the last time the messenger from the underworld sent a letter, Celestial Fortress had sent people to seal the entrance. Seeing the people from Celestial Fortress come out, the guards hurried to greet them. On the way, Lu Chun was not in good spirits, and He Xing was seriously injured. The mentors from Celestial Fortress had a brief exchange with the guards and continued on their way. Everyone, pay attention. The underworld impact has just passed. We need to hurry to the surface. Yi Fan realized that the director was getting weaker and weaker. He could barely lift his eyes. The dean would definitely not be able to handle such a rapid march. He immediately carried Lu Chun on his back and followed the group. After exiting the tunnel, Yi Fan and the others discovered that there were many guards guarding the entrance to the gate of the underworld. The entrance to the underworld on their side seems to have been exposed a long time ago. Chu Tian said, "This side is marked as exit number 3, which means that there are other exits." Xiao Zhan said, "There are also many forks in the tunnel over there. The exit of the Cliff of Reflection seems to be just one of them." Chu Tian frowned. "Although there are many exits, if the underworld starts a war, I'm afraid our academy will become the center of the battle." Yi Fan nodded. I didn't think that something like this would happen in the sixth heaven. Let's wait for the dean to rest before we discuss it. Soon, Celestial Fortress disciples came to welcome the group. They drove a few mounts, and everyone got on their mounts and headed to the World Edge Pavilion headquarters. The Qingzi continent was about the same size as the Xingyuan continent. It was also an independent planet with its own continent and sea. However, the Qingzi continent's land was more scattered, and the vast sea divided the continent into several regions. Because of the different terrain, Celestial Fortress and Zhongxianji's management methods were also different. Zhongxianji's headquarters only had one place, Idle Cloud Mountain, while Celestial Fortress had 8 large branches. They were scattered among the few continents, making it easier to manage. The World Edge Pavilion was one of the 8 large branches of Celestial Fortress. It had the smallest territory among the 8 branches, and its headquarters was located on a rather large island. The gate of the Underworld number 3 was not far from the World Edge Pavilion headquarters. In less than half an hour, everyone landed on the island. Then, the injured members of the World Edge Pavilion were immediately sent for treatment. Very soon, people came to settle down Lu Chun, Yao He, and the others. Fellow Taoists, the Pavilion Master said that the nameless dean is not in a good state and needs to rest. Please follow me to rest, and we will discuss countermeasures tomorrow, an elegant middle-aged man said politely. Yao He cupped her fists and said, "Thank you, Immortal Master." Celestial Fortress's status was similar to Zhongxianji's. Normally, the disciples here would be the same as Zhongxianji's disciples, and Yao He had to address them as Immortal Master. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man smiled and said, "Dean Yao He, I dare not call myself Immortal Master. How could a mere 9-star Theo, the Great, dare to call himself immortal? I am Chuan He. You can look for me directly if you have any problems." Yi Fan and the others had a good impression of Chuan He. At least, he was not like the people from Zhongxingu, who were Immortal Masters, Sengoku, and Immortal Masters. They made it seem as if they had already ascended. Everyone was brought to a small, secluded courtyard and temporarily settled down. Lu Chen was taken care of by Little Green, while Yi Fan and the others returned to their rooms to rest. Late at night, Yao He walked out of her room and saw Chu Tian sitting in the courtyard. "Senior Yao He." Chu Tian hurriedly stood up when he saw Yao He. "Chu Tian, you're still awake?" "I'm not sleepy. This is someone else's territory. The dean is unconscious, and Yi Fan and Xiao Zhan are both injured. It's better for me to keep an eye on them." Yao He sized up Chu Tian. This child was really meticulous and strong. A disciple of the Demonic Academy is really extraordinary. "Senior Yao He, you flatter me." "All right, Senior, it's already so late. Why are you still awake?" Yao He sighed and sat down. "I can't sleep." Li Wei's whereabouts are still unknown. "Senior Yao He, you must believe in our dean. He said that he would rescue Senior Li Wei. He definitely won't go back on his words." "I believe him. However, I find it strange. Everyone else is being used as bait, but Li Wei is being escorted to the king of Hell's palace. Why are they treating her differently?" Speaking of this, Chu Tian's brows knit together tightly as well. Could it be that Senior Li Wei has other uses for them? "Yes, I'm also worried about this." Chu Tian thought for a while and said, "Senior Yao He, if it's really like this, it might be a good thing. They won't immediately harm Senior Li Wei." Yao He's worried expression did not lessen at all. She sighed. "I've thought about what you said. However, if it's like this, the difficulty of rescuing her will become even greater. Do we really have to do what Nameless said and kill the King of Hell, the Demon Lord?" The Underworld's 4 regions were stronger than the previous one. Even in the City of Dead Souls, they had only defeated 3 spirit envoys. It was too difficult to rescue someone from the King of Hell's City, even though Lu Chun had made a promise. But compared to the difficulty of rescuing her, this made Yao He unable to sleep at night. Yao He glanced at Lu Chen's room. It was still lit, and Miss Lu was busy decocting medicine. Lu Chun could not take pills to recover, but there were some herbs that could adjust his condition. Although the effect was minimal, Lu Yi had never stopped trying. John Doe, can you really save Li Wei? Yao He sighed softly and turned around to return to her room. The next day, Lu Chen slept and recovered a lot. His fatigue was not as strong as before, and even his recovery was faster than before. Soon, Chuani came to the door and said that the important figures of the 8 pavilions in the Celestial Fortress, as well as the higher-ups of the academies, had all been invited by Xing. He invited everyone to the Tianya Conference Hall to discuss important matters. Lu Chan pushed the door open and found that Yi Fan and the others were already waiting in the courtyard. Dean, Lu Chen nodded. Let's go. The war is imminent. We must race against time. Chapter 1036. Under Chuan He's lead, everyone came to the Celestial Edge Conference Hall in the center of the island. At this time, the hall was full. There were at least 10,000 people. Because there were so many people had no seats and could only stand outside. Xing saw Lu Chun from afar and quickly came to greet him with his 2 disciples. Nameless brother, how's your recovery? Lu Chen looked at Xing. This guy's limbs were all back. It seemed that the Celestial Fortress's medical skills were good. Lu Chen was still very tired, but it was not a big deal. He cupped his fists and said, pretty good. There are more people here today. Usually, our seats are fixed, so we'll have 5 deans for the time being. Deans Yaohe will sit here temporarily. Lu Chan gave a quick glance. The main seats were all for the Heavenly Immortal Castle's Pavilion Master. Next were the seats for the 2 Immortal Academies. There were also representatives from Immortal Academies sitting there. After that was the Sacred Academy. Not even the principals of ordinary academies had seats. The 2 seats on his side seemed to be added at the last minute. He guessed that with the level of Divine Demon and Feng Lai, they could sit there because Xing had fought for them. It doesn't matter where you sit, Lu Chen said. Then, he asked Yaohe to take a seat and sat next to her. The disciples behind, Xing also cupped their fists and greeted Yi Fan and the other 2. They exchanged some pleasantries. The deans around them all looked at Lu Chen in surprise. Who are these people? Why is Pavilion Master Xing treating them personally? Huh? 7-star Field Grand Cultivators? Am I seeing things? I heard that the Celestial Edge Pavilion joined forces with other academies to defeat the army of the dead. These 2 must be the representatives of those 2 academies. But their levels are too low. Lu Chan was used to such looks. He ignored the discussions around him and sat down leisurely. After Lu Chan sat down, Xing stood up and told everyone what had happened in the underworld. Everyone, we have now confirmed that the unknown portals that appeared in the various continents are the gates of the underworld. We have tested it before. Each entrance can only hold 800 people at a time. However, the various forces of the Netherworld are rushing to open up the gates to the Netherworld. I believe that the upper limit of each entrance will be greatly increased soon. In addition, we learned from them that they are preparing to open the Myriad Soul Palace. It seems that once it opens, they will launch a large-scale invasion of the Yang world. There was an uproar below the stage. The Netherworld really exists? They're attacking the Yang world. Hiss. I've heard that many unknown portals have appeared in other continents as well. If the underworld is really attacking the Yang realm, then the scale of this battle is unimaginable. Xing continued. They're currently storing Yang energy. Although we don't have any concrete information about their progress, we speculate that they're nearing the end. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in such a hurry to open the Myriad Soul Palace and launch a large-scale attack on the Yang world. As for Yangshi, based on the information we've received so far, it should be able to help them fight in the Yang realm and eliminate the influence of the Yang realm on them. There was a moment of silence below the stage. No one knew what to do in the face of such a shocking change. Right now, the Netherworld is restless, and the army of the dead is powerful. In this rescue operation, we encountered the weakest army of the dead, but even so, we were almost wiped out. Xing continued. If they can use Yang energy to offset the Yang realm's restrictions, then the army of the dead, the army of the dead, the army of the dead, the army of the nightmare, and the King of Hell's army will work together. Even if the battlefield is in the Yang world, the strength of the Netherworld army will still be unimaginable. One of the representatives from the Immortal Academy suddenly asked, Xing, I think you're being a bit alarmist. 800 of you went to the Netherworld, and according to what you said, you only lost a few people even though your strength was greatly reduced. Moreover, you defeated tens of thousands of army of the dead, saved the hostages, and even captured the captives. In my opinion, the army of the dead is just SOSO. After this person finished speaking, another representative from the Immortal Academy next to him also said, Indeed, although the Sky Edge Pavilion is also full of hidden talents. To be honest, the strength of the Sky Edge Pavilion should be the weakest among the 8 pavilions in the Celestial Fortress. If 800 people from the Sky Edge Pavilion can kill tens of thousands of enemies, then is the army of the dead really that terrifying? Even if they swarm out, I'm afraid we'll be able to kill them easily. Xing shook his head. Everyone, you're wrong. The Sky Edge Pavilion did send 800 people to the Netherworld, but we're not the only one who went to the Netherworld to rescue people. The Demonic Academy and the Phonelai Academy from the Prosperous Source Continent also went with us. There's a total of 1,800 people. 1,800 people is not a lot. The Pavilion Master of the Celestial Fortress Pavilion objected. According to this ratio, one person can fight against 100 people. The Pavilion Master of the Sky Veil Pavilion asked, Xing, this is a serious matter. We need to know more about the strength of both sides. I want to ask, what is the level of the Demonic Academy and the Phonelai Academy in the Prosperous Source Continent? Xing was a little embarrassed, but everyone around him was waiting for his answer. In the end, he said, the Phonelai Academy is a sacred academy, and it should be ranked in the top 15 in the Prosperous Source Continent. As for the Demonic Academy, cough, cough, the Demonic Academy is a newly established lower academy, and it's currently unranked. There was another commotion below the stage. A few Sacred Academy deans who were ranked at the top shook their heads and said, the top 15 Sacred Academies are worth a look, but the Demonic Academy can be ignored directly. This means that the army of the dead is indeed not strong. The Pavilion Masters of the Celestial Fortress were also whispering to each other. I checked the overall strength of the Prosperous Source Continent, and it's not ranked in the 6th heaven. There isn't even a single Immortal Academy. If the Phonelai Academy can't even be ranked in the top 10, it shouldn't be strong either. In the end, it's mainly because of the 800 people from the Sky Edge Pavilion. That's right. Moreover, Xing said that there were almost no casualties in this operation. Ironwood was killed by the Netherworld. I'm afraid Xing is deliberately exaggerating because he's angry. The Pavilion Master of the Sky Veil Pavilion asked, Junior brother Xing, I heard that the reason you were able to return safely was because the Nameless Academy Master killed tens of thousands of people in the army of the dead by himself. Can you let the Nameless Academy Master explain the situation to everyone? Xing nodded and walked up to Nameless. These people still don't realize the seriousness of the situation. Sigh, I'm not good with words. Thank you, Brother Nameless. Lu Chen smiled. It was normal for practical people to be not good with words. Pavilion Master, you don't have to blame yourself. They haven't experienced it themselves, so it's inevitable that they have doubts. He stood up and walked to the center of the stage. He cupped his fists and said, Deans, Pavilion Masters, I'm the Academy Master of the Demonic Academy. Nameless, if you have any questions, you can ask me directly. Chapter 1037. As soon as Lu Chun stepped out, there was an uproar below the stage. He's nameless? Why is he called solipsistic? 7-star field great cultivator? What the hell? I really don't know the strength of the army of the dead. They said that the Celestial Fortress couldn't resist them, and they also said that tens of thousands of people were wiped out by this person. Is the bottom line of the Prosperous Source Continent so low? A 7-star great cultivator can be the dean? Xing was from the Celestial Fortress and had prestige in the Azure Marsh Continent. However, Lu Chun was different. Apart from the people of the World Edge Pavilion who respected Lu Chun, no one else respected him. Yi Fan shook his head and said to Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan, "The World Edge Pavilion isn't the only big one here. Even with Senior He Xing's recommendation, they still don't recognize the dean." Chu Tian laughed. "Are you worried that the dean can't control the situation? I think you should be worried that the dean won't tear down other people's houses." Xiao Zhan's expression was serious. "I bet a spirit cleansing pill that the dean can control the situation in 3 minutes." Ronger looked at Yi Fan and the other two in surprise. These 3 guys were actually betting on the dean behind his back. "Hey, your dean has just recovered. He can't use the star-burning move again, right?" Ronger joined the discussion. "Besides, there are so many experts here, and there are people from Immortal Academy. Nameless Dean will more or less restrain himself." Chu Tian shook his head regretfully. "That's hard to say. With the dean's personality, as long as it's not the Demonic Academy, he won't care." While they were talking, the strong people of the Azure Marsh continent began to question Lu Chun. "Nameless Dean, Pavilion Master, he said that the underworld is extremely strong, but he also said that you killed tens of thousands of the army of the dead alone. Isn't this a bit contradictory? Nameless, to put it bluntly, you're just a 7-star great cultivator. It's already good enough that you don't need anyone to protect you. What makes you think you can turn the tide? If you say that the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion fought with their lives to create an opportunity for you, I might believe it. But if you say that you fought against tens of thousands of people alone, either the army of the dead is useless, or it's just a fantasy. Nameless, your demonic academy is only a lower academy, and the Fonlai Academy is not strong. Was it because the people of the Tinya Pavilion were covering for you that you could not win? Please make it clear." Lu Chun already understood. The Greenfa mainland was not a place where a single person had the final say. As a result, although the World's Edge Pavilion had prestige, it was not as dominant as the Zhongxing. In addition, this kind of divide-and-conquer situation would inevitably lead to disagreements within Celestial Fortress. The Pavilion Masters did not seem to be completely convinced by He Xing. As a result, it was even more difficult to unify the differences. Even if the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion said so, the others might not fully believe it. Faced with all kinds of doubts, Lu Chun looked at everyone indifferently and said, "Since you don't believe what the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion said, I will calculate the combat power of the army of the dead for you. We have captured 2 of the 3 spirit envoys. They're not in the top positions in the army of the dead, but they lead 100,000 soldiers and are 2-star ghost kings. May I ask the deans, how many Saint Academies have more than 3 2-star ghost kings?" This is only the spirit envoys. Above the spirit envoys are the spirit generals, spirit commanders, spirit guardians, and spirit kings. In terms of realm, can the Celestial Fortress withstand such a lineup? The Pavilion Masters of the Celestial Fortress frowned. Lu Chun continued, "This time, we did not meet a stronger opponent because their experts were busy opening the Eternal Soul Palace. The Spirit Kings also happened to go to the King of Hell to meet with the other leaders. To put it simply, what we saw was only the tip of the iceberg of the army of the dead. Among the 4 main cities of the underworld, the City of the Dead Souls is the weakest. If the City of the Dead Souls has such a terrifying military force, then the strength of ghost soldiers, Bai Ling, and the King of Hell can be imagined." Lu Chun looked at everyone and said unhurriedly, "Now, let's talk about the Eternal Soul Palace. I guess the number of dead souls there is simply incalculable. How many years has the 6th heaven existed, and how many people have died? I saw millions of graves in the Immortal Corpse Mound in the Shungyuan continent alone. I think the Qingzi continent is also difficult to calculate. How many continents are there in the 6th heaven? Incalculable number of dead souls. If they can recover their original combat power in the Yang world, who can stop them? Entrances to the underworld have already appeared in various continents. This means that the underworld's ambition is not overnight. They have already started preparing. At this time, if they're not completely confident, why would they expose themselves now?" Lu Chun's deduction made many people fall into deep thought. The Pavilion Master of the Sky Veil Pavilion said, Nameless, we have also thought of the situation you mentioned. It is because of this that we have gathered almost all the academies in the Qingzi continent. However, what I want to know is the combat power of the army of the dead. There are some parts of what junior brother He Xing said that I can't understand. Lu Chen nodded. So you still have doubts about the previous battle? From everyone's eyes, it could be seen that they had tacitly agreed with Lu Chen's statement. Lu Chen thought for a while and said to He Xing, Senior He Xing, do you have anything to test one's strength here? Yes. He Xing said, the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion have to go through 3 tests. The 4-dimensional strength testing stone, the fighting soul strength testing stone, and the elemental testing stone. Lu Chen said, then please bring it up. Well, because the value of the test data is too high, the 3 strength testing stones need to be fixed at the base, so they cannot be moved in the martial arts arena. Lu Chen nodded and then said to everyone, the biggest contradiction in the previous battle was that the 800 Celestial Fortress disciples couldn't win, but I killed tens of thousands of the army of the dead. This made you feel that it was too contradictory. Then, it's very simple. Please move to the martial arts arena and test it on the spot. Your doubts will then be eliminated. Everyone's face was filled with astonishment. Our doubts will be eliminated after a test? Nameless is young, but he has a big mouth. Test? That's good. I want to see what a 7-star field grand cultivator can do. The World Edge Pavilion's strength testing stone is said to have the highest limit in the Qingzi continent. Ordinary people don't have the chance to test it. This time, I'll go and broaden my horizons. 800 disciples from the Celestial Immortal Castle couldn't even win, but he turned the situation around by himself. If it wasn't for the Crane Pavilion Lord, I would have turned against him on the spot. Do you think we're idiots? Let's go and see what waves he can make. The Pavilion Master of the Sky Veil Pavilion stood up first. All right, the strength testing stone is the most persuasive. This old man will go and take a look. The other Pavilion Masters also stood up. Seeing this, the other deans also left their seats. The tens of thousands of people with the most authority in the Qingzi continent headed to the martial arts arena. Yi Fan and the other 2 followed behind Lu Chen. Yi Fan caught up with Lu Chen and said, Dean, you're still weak. Testing will hurt your vitality. Lu Chen looked back at Yi Fan and the other 2 and frowned. Who said I'm going to test it? Dean, you're not going to test it? I'm not going to test it, but you 3 are. It just so happens that our academy doesn't have such an advanced strength testing stone. You guys can test it. After Lu Chen finished speaking, he leisurely walked to the martial arts arena. Yi Fan, Chu Tian, and Xiao Zhan looked at each other. No way. We're going to test it. Chapter 1038. The arena of the World Edge Pavilion was much larger than that of the Demonic Academy. It almost took up half of the island. Even the ground was made of special rocks. It was said that the ground was made of rare black tortoise meteorite rocks. In the northwest corner of the arena stood 4 huge mountains, each of which was like a small hill. Damn, are those the test stones? No wonder we can't move them. Xiao Zhan's eyes were wide open. He had never seen such a large test stone. Lu Chen was slightly surprised and said to Chuanhe beside him, why are there 4 testing stones? Oh, here's the thing. 3 of them are the strength test stone, the strength test stone, the strength test stone, and the element test stone. The last one is the pet test stone, which is only used by beast tamers and puppet masters. Lu Chen nodded. The World Edge Pavilion was indeed well equipped. It was just that he didn't know where Lu Chen's battle pets were. Otherwise, he would have been able to test them. By the way, Rhubarb, Lu Chen suddenly remembered that he had another battle pet. Should I ask Rhubarb to test it? Lu Chen thought about it and decided not to. In terms of combat ability, the battle pet would drag down the average score. Do the test stones measure attributes in 4 dimensions? Lu Chen asked again. Chuanhe explained, no, what our celestial immortal castle pursues is actual combat ability. Therefore, the 4 great testing stones only test the value of combat ability. Lu Chen was confused. How do you measure combat ability? Chuanhe smiled patiently. During the test, you will have to use 2 different moves in a row. The test stones will take the opportunity to measure the flow of spiritual power in your body and give you a total combat ability score. Luchan nodded. He didn't understand the principle, but he felt that it was impressive. Not long after, everyone had gathered in front of the 4 testing boulders. The disciples of the World Edge Pavilion were testing the 3 test stones. Soon, they were done. To make the results more convincing, Xing said to everyone, "The testing is done. You can send representatives to test the stones first to confirm the results." Many people were very interested in it. The Tianyao Pavilion's testing stone. It is said that not only is the upper limit high, but it is also very sensitive. I have only heard of it in the past, but I have never personally tested it. This is a rare opportunity. Dean, can I give it a try? We can also let the people of Xunyuan continent see the strength of our Azure Fin continent. Crane Pavilion Master, can I let my disciple try? Many representatives expressed their interest in testing the strength testing stone. Naturally, Xing wouldn't refuse. Then let's find 10 disciples, each to test. Take note, if the number is too low, the strength testing stone won't show the result. As soon as Xing said this, the disciples who were eager to give it a try hesitated. If he couldn't perform well in front of so many people, not only would he embarrass himself, he would also embarrass the academy. However, there were still experts. Soon after, there were 10 disciples from various academies standing in front of each testing stone. All of these people were disciples from top-notch sacred academies. There were even disciples from the 2 immortal academies and the other 7 pavilions of Heaven Immortal Pavilion. For them, the main thing was to test the accuracy of the debugging results. There were not many disciples taking the test, so Xing let them take the test one by one. The first test was the physical body test. The first tester came from a top-notch sacred academy. Under the request of the disciples of World Edge Pavilion, he didn't use the soul-body fusion state. After throwing a punch at the testing stone, he quickly changed his move and attacked with his sword. Physical combat strength, 126. Cross-level ability, 0, 48 stars. Rating, below average talent. There was a burst of discussion in the surroundings. He seems to be from Wulong Sacred Academy. He's only rated as excellent talent? Heaven Immortal Pavilion's requirements are really high. That person glanced at the final result and shook his head. In his mind, he should be a peerless genius. How come there was only an excellent talent and a below-average talent? It seemed that it was indeed difficult to enter the Celestial Fortress. Soon, the second tester came forward. After a lot of preparation, he threw a punch at the testing stone and quickly changed his move. Physical combat strength, 89. Cross-level ability, 0, 56 stars. Rating, above average talent. The result of this test was also excellent talent. Although his combat strength was low, his ability to fight above his level was higher than the previous one. His final rating was also higher than the previous one. It should be because his cultivation level was low, so his combat strength was low. However, his potential was higher than the previous one. Physical combat strength, 286. Cross-level ability, 0, 31 stars. Rating, below average talent. Physical combat strength, 417. Cross-level ability, 2, 13 stars. Rating, above average talent. Physical combat strength, 403. Cross-level ability, 1, 32 stars. Rating, below average talent. Soon, all 10 testers were done. The difference in combat strength was huge. However, combat strength wasn't the main point. The key was the ability to fight above one's level. The weakest one could only fight above one's level by less than half a star. The 2 strongest disciples could fight above one's level by 2 stars. There were 3 people who reached the standard of genius. They were the disciples of the 2 great academies and the Heavenly Veil Pavilion. After the test, the Heavenly Veil Pavilion disciple returned to his side and nodded to the Heavenly Veil Pavilion Master. The data is accurate. These people had all been tested. Everyone's eyes fell on Lu Chun. This guy? He's a 7-star great cultivator. His combat strength shouldn't be displayed. right? To be honest, I don't believe that his combat strength can exceed 10. Let's just watch him take the test. When the results are out, their excuses will naturally fall apart. Lu Chen glanced at Yi Fan and the other two. Which one you will go? I'll go. Yi Fan looked at Xiao Zhan and Chu Tian. Neither of them had any objections. Seeing Yi Fan walk forward, many people raised their doubts. Nameless, you're not going to take the test, but you're letting your disciple do it. What's the meaning of this? Lu Chun smiled. You're not the only one who's doubting me. You're also doubting my demonic academy. Then, I'll send a disciple to take the test. Everyone wanted to say something, but Yi Fan suddenly said, the dean has just gone through a great battle and is weak. Is there a problem with letting a disciple do it? The dean has just saved 800 people from Celestial Fortress. You want him to take the test in such a weakened state? Facing the various deans, Yi Fan was not afraid at all. The Sky Veil Pavilion disciple who had just taken the test snorted. You have no respect for your elders. Fine, you want to take the test, right? Sure, I'd like to see how strong a lower house disciple like you is in actual combat. Yi Fan snorted, walked to the strength testing stone, and quickly activated it. Looking at the strength testing stone in front of him, Yi Fan's eyes widened in anger. This punch was related to the integration of the academy, so he had to give it his all. Violent spiritual energy poured out in an instant. Then, Yi Fan punched the strength testing stone. In an instant, he quickly changed his move and struck out with a Buddhist seal. The interval between the two attacks was so fast that only a loud sound was heard. After a while, the strength testing stone gave the final data. Combat strength, 586. Overlevel ability, 6, 13 stars. Rating, unparalleled. Lu Chen looked at the data and nodded in satisfaction, as expected of an orange card. Chapter 1039. Everyone was stunned. Yi Fan's cross-level ability was above 6, which meant he could cross 6 stars. In Theo the Great's era, those who could cross levels were all geniuses. Immortal Academy's recruitment standard was to cross 2 stars. However, a lower house disciple had crossed 6 stars. A peerless genius. F***CK. A certain dean's eyes turned red. If he could recruit such a disciple, he would wake up laughing in his dreams. Yi Fan didn't seem satisfied with his results. Only 6 stars? That shouldn't be. The group almost collapsed when they heard him talking to himself. This guy was actually not satisfied with his performance. Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan couldn't stay calm when they saw Yi Fan's data. This test is quite interesting, Chu Tian said. Dean, our academy is poor, and we don't have such things. Since we're here, I want to try it too? Lu Chen's face darkened. How can you say that? Our academy isn't poor. Our academy doesn't even have enough spirit stones to spend. We do have a lot of spirit stones, but that's because you exploited the disciples. The key is resources. Our academy's resources are snatched by exchanging disciples. How can we not be poor? Chu Tian muttered. Lu Chen rolled his eyes at Chu Tian. Ha, this kid is actually telling the truth. Go. I know you guys are itching for a try. I'll go talk to Senior Yixing. After saying goodbye to Yixing, Chu Tian and Xiao Zhan also went to test. Hey, don't use Sword Chi. I don't think it's powerful enough. Yi Fan didn't forget to tell the two of them when he came back. Chu Tian nodded. After some preparation, he used 2 melee skills on the strength testing stone. Physical combat strength, 626. Cross-level ability, 6, 23 stars. Rating, peerless. F***CK, only 6. 23 stars. Chu Tian was disappointed. Yi Fan didn't perform well, but his was only 6. 23? According to his estimation, he should be at least 7 or 8 stars. Senior brother is only SOSO. Move. Xiao Zhan pushed the dumbfounded Chu Tian aside and walked straight to the testing stone. Xiao Zhan, your injuries haven't healed yet. Are you sure you want to humiliate yourself? Yi Fan said. TCH, do I, Xiao Zhan, need to use my full strength? I can easily kill you 2 pieces of trash, Xiao Zhan said smugly. He had prepared a large number of enhancement skills, and he immediately threw 2 punches. Physical combat strength, 406. Cross-level ability, 4, 18 stars. Rating, detected physical damage. Rating excluding interference, unparalleled. As soon as Xiao Zhan's results came out, a burst of laughter came from behind him. Ha ha, only 4. Ha ha ha, Xiao Zhan, I already told you that you're asking to be humiliated, but you still don't believe me. Chu Tian laughed until his stomach hurt. Only 4. Ha ha ha, trash. Yi Fan shook his head. Tell me, a cripple like you dares to take the test. Don't you think it's embarrassing? Xiao Zhan's face was full of shame and anger. My spiritual energy isn't running smoothly, so my attributes are discounted. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so low. Stop explaining. Chu Tian finally stopped. Io, what the F asterisk CK? You've been preparing for so long. Uft. Combat power is only 400. Ha, trash. Xiao Zhan, don't call me senior brother in the future. It's too embarrassing. Xiao Zhan's face was full of grievance. I don't accept this. Wait until I recover. My combat power won't be this low. It will definitely be higher than both of you. Yi Fan coldly snorted. Don't talk about next time, okay? I didn't perform well just now. If you let me take the test again, and I can't exceed 7 stars, I'll write my name upside down. However, no matter how bad it is, it shouldn't be 4 stars. Senior brother Xiao Zhan, your results are indeed a little shabby. If Wu Xian and Skyfall knew about it, I'm afraid they won't be able to raise their heads in the future. Don't. Junior brother Yi Fan, what are you doing? We're all brothers who have gone through life and death together. Don't talk about this when you go back. Xiao Zhan hurriedly pulled Yi Fan back. Senior brother, I've been a little tight on money recently. Senior brother Xian Jia has been forcing me to pay him back. You see, Yi Fan looked at Xiao Zhan. Xiao Zhan's face turned white. 2,000. I don't have much left after paying the school fees. 20,000. Yi Fan decisively raised the price. When you went to Feng Lai previously, I think you bought dozens of sets of clothes. This amount of money is nothing to you. 20,000. Yi Fan, you've really gone astray. 5,000 is the most I can give you. I even F asterisk king save your life. Isn't 15,000 enough? Fine. 5,000 it is. Xiao Zhan breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yi Fan was poor and easier to fool. The 3 of them continued to tease each other, but the people around them were already dumbfounded. These 3 are all peerless geniuses. Oh my God, aren't they from the lower house? Someone who's 4 stars above their level is too ashamed to meet them? Excuse me. I want to be alone. Someone who's 4 stars above their level is considered a super genius in our school. We can't wait to hold them in our palms and spend a lot of resources to nurture them. In the end, in the demonic academy, someone who's 4 stars above their level is too ashamed to meet others. This is too exaggerated. Is this a conversation between peerless geniuses? Can't they care about the feelings of ordinary people like us? I don't want to cultivate anymore. Anyway, I can't compare to them, even if I work myself to death. He Xing and the others were mentally prepared. After all, they had seen the performance of these 3 people in the underworld. However, when the results came out, they were still shocked. What kind of monsters were these? How many more of these monsters were there in the demonic academy? Were they really students from the lower house? However, when He Xing's eyes fell on Lu Chun, he was relieved. After all, like the president, like the students. After seeing the performance of these 3 students, who would dare to say that the demonic academy was not good? Even the people from Immortal Academy had to look at the demonic academy in a new light. President, aren't you going to take the test? Xiao Zhan was humiliated by his companions, but he was powerless to fight back. He could only divert everyone's attention. Sure enough, everyone's eyes were focused on Lu Chun. Your body is weak. Just a few punches will do, Xiao Zhan said. He Xing also walked over and said to Lu Chun, Nameless brother, even though Yi Fan and the others' performance is amazing, if you want to dispel everyone's doubts, you might have to do it yourself. Of course. Actually, I also want to see Brother Nameless results. I'm not doubting your strength, Nameless Brother. I'm just curious. Lu Chun smiled at He Xing. Actually, I also want to try it myself. However, cough cough, Senior He Xing, I want to ask, how much is this testing stone? You can't buy it with spirit stones. It's a special material that we found by chance when we were mining in the Green Pond continent. It was forged by a craftsman, He Xing replied. Oh, I see. If you can't buy it, then I won't take the test. Lu Chun said hesitantly. Nameless Brother, could it be that you're afraid of damaging the testing stone? He Xing smiled. Nameless Brother, don't worry. This testing stone has the ability to repair itself. Occasionally, it will repair itself. Moreover, its upper limit is very high. Chapter 1040. Someone next to him whispered, Disciple is very strong, but Nameless doesn't dare to take the test himself. Could it be that he's afraid? Don't forget that he's only a 7-star cultivator. No matter how much he can surpass, he won't be able to pass the test in terms of combat strength. Well, if his combat strength is not as good as Disciple's, wouldn't he be laughed at? He Xing looked at Lu Chun, leaned over to Lu Chen's side, and whispered, Nameless Brother, the management of our Qingzi continent is based on division. Because of this, we pay more attention to the strong. Sometimes, you have to show your strength to convince everyone. Or what kind of test are you good at? Tell me, and I'll arrange it. Since He Xing had already said this, Lu Chun could only bite the bullet. Okay, then I'll take the test. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes were focused on Lu Chun. That guy was finally willing to take the test himself. Yi Fan and the other two were also nervous. At present, the body testing stone was the closest test to actual combat strength. They didn't know how good the Dean's results would be. He Xing personally led the way. Lu Chun walked to the body testing stone under the gaze of the 8 pavilion masters of the celestial fortress of the Qingzi continent, the representatives of the major academies, and the outstanding disciples. Nameless Brother, do your best. He Xing looked at Lu Chun encouragingly. Although Lu Chun was not in good condition now, he was different from Xiao Zhan and Yi Fan. The two of them were physically injured, but Lu Chun was just physically weak. It didn't have much impact on this test. Lu Chun thought for a moment. Since he wanted to take the test, he might as well take the test with his strength. Otherwise, there would be doubts. Celestial Demon Symbiosis. With a boom, Lu Chen's body erupted with violent spirit energy, setting off a gust of wind. His originally ordinary appearance instantly became exquisite, as if it was carved by a knife. His black hair turned white, and his whole aura was completely different from before. God of War Possession, Demon Transformation, Place of Death, Dragon Blood Boiling, 3 Reincarnations, Demon Transformation, Celestial Demon, Celestial Body, Emptiness of Gods and Demon's Arm. Suddenly, Lu Chen's left arm swelled up. His originally normal arm instantly demonized, like the limb of a magical beast. That is strengthening the body. He has an external strengthening of his flesh. When Immortal Academy's representative saw this scene, his eyes immediately widened, filled with horror. What kind of arm is that? I've never seen such an external strengthening of the body. The Pavilion Lord's eyes widened. Even when he saw the results of Yi Fan and the others, he wasn't so moved. However, Lu Chun hadn't even taken the test yet, and the emptiness of God's and Demon's arm was already enough to make him lose his composure. Emptiness of God's and Demon's arm. Could it be the life-reversing set of gods and demons? The Pavilion Lord's brows furrowed as he stared at Lu Chen's left arm. At this moment, Yao He looked at the man in the field. Lu Chen had a head of white hair and snow-white skin. Even his eyebrows were white, and there was a pair of furry ears on his head. If one only saw Lu Chun like this, they could only sigh that this man was too handsome. However, this immortal-like elegant and handsome man actually had such a terrifying left arm. This kind of feeling was as if this guy had merged 2 extreme visual shocks into one. One was a god. One was a demon, Apart from the dual heaven's might and soul-body unification, Lu Chun activated all of his enhancement skills. He stood in the middle of the field, and with him, as the center, strong winds blew in all directions. What a powerful aura! Why is this the spiritual energy of a 7-star cultivator? Is this his true strength? I seem to have sensed how powerful he is. At this moment, Lu Chun roared, "Void attack! Annihilation of heaven and earth! Void attack! Shattering the void!" The combination of these two major skills was almost flawless. There was no gap at all, and the change was completed in an instant. After strengthening Void Attack, the skill launched by Void Attack could be converted into an area of effect attack. However, if it was not converted into an area of effect attack, the damage would increase by another 200%. Obviously, during the test, there was no need to use an area of effect attack. He only needed to pursue the maximum value of a single attack. With a loud bang, the two attacks were too fast, and one move was completed. After the collision of the two major skills, the entire strength testing stone shook violently. Even the ground of the training field shook violently. Everyone's face turned pale. Just how terrifying was the destructive power of those two attacks. Oh my God, the foundation of the strength testing stone was almost shattered. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. He can't possibly be a 7-star cultivator. I don't believe it. No matter how chaotic the surrounding people were, Yi Fan, He Xing, Yao He, and the others did not seem to hear it. They were all staring at the result panel of the strength testing stone. Nameless, what was the result? This time, the waiting time was longer than any of the previous tests. The final result was still not out. What's going on? Why isn't the result out yet? He Xing looked at the strength testing stone in shock. He had never encountered such a situation before. Chuan frowned. He walked quickly to the strength testing stone and looked around. When his hand touched the strength testing stone, suddenly, with a cracking sound, dozens of cracks appeared on the strength testing stone with Lu Chen's attack as the center. Oh my God! The strength testing stone cracked. It cracked. Lu Chen was also very nervous now. He withdrew his fist unnaturally and rolled his eyes. Fortunately, no one was paying attention to him now. Everyone was staring at the strength testing stone in shock. Suddenly, Yi Fan, who was standing next to Lu Chun, looked at the cracked strength testing stone and said faintly, "Dean, Sai, this should be very expensive." Chu Tian could not help but shake his head. Senior He Xing just said that this thing can't be bought at all. I'm afraid the Demonic Academy will have to bear a huge debt in the future. Xiao Zhan sighed. Dean, is it too late for us to run away now? Lu Chun was speechless. I told you not to test it. Why do you have to test it? Do you want me to use all my strength? We're friends with the World Edge Pavilion. They won't make us pay, Lu Chun said, pretending to be calm. Dean, are you sure? Xiao Zhan looked at Lu Chun. Didn't they say that brothers should settle accounts clearly? Lu Chen's forehead was sweating. Senior He Xing just said that this thing can repair itself. Lu Chun suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and finally remembered what He Xing just said. You guys can't stay calm. You only know how to be nervous. This thing has a strong self-healing ability. It can definitely repair this small injury. As soon as he finished speaking, the strength testing stone completely broke in the middle. The entire stone mountain was directly divided into two. Lu Chen's jaw almost dropped. What happened to self-healing? Why did it completely crack? He Xing is lying. With a boom, the gravel on the strength testing stone fell and rolled in front of Lu Chun. Coincidentally, this stone was the one that showed the results. There was also a row of incomplete information on it. Rating, Godfiend. Dean, I think we should run. We can't afford this, Yi Fan said seriously. Chapter 1041. The people from the World Edge Pavilion were looking for other stones that could display the results. However, after the test stones cracked, they were all broken into pieces. The few pieces that they found could no longer display the results. He Xing saw that Lu Chun was leaving quietly with his 3 disciples. He grabbed Lu Chun and said, "Brother Nameless, please wait." Lu Chun sighed. He had been discovered. "Nameless, you—" Lu Chun shook his head. He was so angry. He quickly said, "Senior He Xing, let's be clear. I didn't plan to test it. If you didn't force me to test it, and if you didn't look at me with your encouraging eyes, I wouldn't have ended up like this." He Xing was stunned for a moment. Then, he hurriedly said, "Oh, why are you saying this now? Your attack just now broke the test stone." Lu Chun blinked. "Now, I believe that no one will doubt your strength anymore," He Xing said. Lu Chun said in surprise, "Senior He Xing, is this what you want to tell me? Of course. You don't want me to accompany you to the test stone?" He Xing turned around and looked at the rubble on the ground. "Sigh, although my heart aches, this is nothing compared to the underworld. We could just find another testing stone to replace it. After all, we still have 3 more that we can use." Lu Chun finally felt relieved. Celestial Fortress was indeed generous. They didn't care about hundreds of millions of assets at all. At this moment, the onlookers were completely stunned. Although Lu Chun's result was only 2 words, divine demon, there seemed to be a suffix behind it, but they couldn't find it anymore. However, the fact that he broke the test stone was more convincing than anything else. "I didn't expect there to be a guy who can ignore levels. To be able to break the test stone, his combat strength must be at least above 3,000. His cultivation level is only at the Grand Cultivator realm. His combat strength must be even more terrifying. What is the final rating of Divine Demon? Is there a higher rating than Unparalleled? This is the first time I've heard of it." The 2 great Immortal Academy representatives walked up to Lu Chun. They cupped their fists towards Lu Chun and said, "Nameless Principal, we have offended you before. Please forgive us." Lu Chun was in a good mood because he didn't have to pay any compensation. What's more, according to common sense, their suspicions were normal. He Xing had said that the 800 disciples of the World Edge Pavilion had been suppressed, and he had described how powerful the army of the dead was. In the end, they had been wiped out by a 7-star cultivator. It did not make sense. "It's fine." Lu Chun returned the courtesy. The pavilion masters of the Heavenly Sea Pavilion and the Heavenly Screen Pavilion also walked over. "It seems like the Netherworld's ambitions have been revealed. We must take action and inform the headquarters of the various continents to discuss this matter together." Lu Chun heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that everyone was finally discussing the underworld invasion seriously. At this moment, Xiao Zhan ran over and said, "Principal, come and test this. The element testing stone is quite accurate." He Xing's expression changed when he heard that. He hurriedly stopped Lu Chun and said, "Nameless brother, you're not feeling well, and I think you're tired. You should go back and rest. Chuan He, take Nameless brother back to rest." Chuan He. Lu Chun originally wanted to give it a try, but he was half pulled and half invited by Chuan He to send him away. He Xing only heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Lu Chun being dragged away. Good heavens, if another testing stone was destroyed, then his heart would really ache to death. "Junior brother He Xing, we'll discuss how to deal with this within the Celestial Fortress." The other pavilion masters woke He Xing up, and he returned to the meeting hall with everyone. Lu Chun and the disciples returned to their residence. The Celestial Fortress needed to determine the overall strategy before discussing it with the other academies. In the Green Fin continent, one pavilion could not control the overall situation. However, if the Celestial Fortress was united, they would still have a strong leadership. Lu Chun had consumed a lot of energy during this test. Lu Yi was patiently brewing medicine for Lu Chun. Seeing how busy Lu Yi was, Lu Chun suddenly thought of the Underworld's flower. The Underworld's flower was in the hands of the King of Hell, and Li Wei was in the King of Hell's palace. This meant that a battle between him and the King of Hell was inevitable. Although Lu Chun did not know the strength of the King of Hell, he was able to unify the Underworld. There was only to think about how strong that guy was. If I can solve the problem of my stamina, I might be able to fight. However, after being strengthened by the Underworld's core, my fatigue has an obvious negative effect. The Flame Spirit Core's 30 seconds of fatigue is far from enough to support me in a battle with the king of hell. Thinking of this, Lu Chun could not help but think of the planet Crystal Core. If even the underworld had its own planet Crystal Core, then what about the other continents? Did the Xingyuan continent, the Green Fin continent, and the other continents have their own planet Crystal Cores? If so, where could he find them? Although Rhubarb could search for treasures, he should not be able to find the hidden treasures. Just as Lu Chun was worrying about this matter, Chuan He came over to deliver the herbs. Miss Lu, these are the herbs you asked me to find. They're all here. Chuan He handed the herbs to Lu Yi. Thank you. Lu Yi said, about that, I'm really sorry. We can't take out anything decent to exchange. What are you talking about, Miss Lu? Not to mention that these herbs are not very precious. Even if they are rare, the nameless Dean saved 800 people of the World Edge Pavilion. This time, he made a move to support the Pavilion Master. It's reasonable for us to provide these herbs. Since Chuan He said so, Lu Yi did not decline. She took the herbs and went to refine medicine. Chuan He walked to Lu Chen's room. Mr. Nameless, are you used to living here? It's very good here. Brother Chuan He, please take a seat. Chuan He walked over and sat beside Lu Chen. Mr. Nameless, I heard that Miss Lu has long become a savior alchemist, but she has been unable to break through? Lu Chen was still thinking about something, but when he heard Chuan He mention this, he looked at Chuan He in surprise. That's true. It said that alchemists are the most difficult to break through to become immortal alchemists. They need opportunities. Chuan He nodded. That's true. Alchemists and blacksmiths are known as the 9th and 10th most important professions. These two life skills are also the most difficult to break through. However, I've been following the Pavilion Master to various continents for many years. I was fortunate enough to meet 2 immortal alchemists. Because I also learn alchemy, I asked them how to break through. Lu Chen's eyes widened. Oh, what did they say? Chuan He said, to break through to immortal alchemists, you first need a top-grade immortal pill formula. It must be a top-grade immortal pill with a success rate of less than 1 in 1,000. Then, you need to refine a divine pattern pill. Using this method, the chances of breaking through will be higher. Lu Chen immediately called Lu Yi over and told Lu Yi about this. You need to refine a divine pattern pill. Lu Yi's eyes widened. Chapter 1042. Chuan He nodded. That's right. It said that the divine pattern pill can only be made by an immortal pharmacist. If you can make the divine pattern pill, it means that you have reached the level of an immortal pharmacist and have a high chance of breaking through. Lu Chen was confused. What's the divine pattern pill? Lu Yi explained, Boss, pills can be divided into 9 grades according to their quality. However, it said that there's an even higher grade above the 9 grades, which is the divine pattern. The so-called divine inscriptions refer to the inextinguishable pill tribulation that forms natural patterns when the pill is formed. These patterns are like paths and are also called the heavenly divine pattern. Just by hearing the description of the divine pattern pill, Lu Chun felt that it had nothing to do with him. It was better to leave it to Lu Yi. If Miss Lu needs it, we have 2 pill recipes that meet the requirements. However, we can only gather 4 or 5 sets of ingredients. Chuan He said, logically speaking, Lu Yi should be very interested in the pill recipes. However, Lu Yi directly rejected him. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Chuan He. However, I believe that boss will help me get the pill recipes. Chuan He didn't say anything and smiled. That's true. It's Chuan He's fault. Then it's getting late. I'll go back first. If you need anything, you can ask the disciples outside to call me. After sending Chuan He off, Lu Chen turned around and looked at Lu Yi strangely. Little Green, you don't want his pill recipes? Lu Yi smiled. Although the people from the World's Edge Pavilion seemed nice, they suddenly came over to curry favor with you. It seems that they want to rope you in. I don't want boss to be controlled by others just to help me break through. Lu Chen smiled and shook his head. This woman was very meticulous. Besides, boss, you'll definitely help me get the pill recipes, right? Lu Chen rubbed Lu Yi's long hair. Of course. Later on, Yi Fan, Ronger, and the others were invited to discuss the Tao with the disciples of the World Edge Pavilion. In other words, they were sparring games. Yao he followed along, and Lu Chen did not join the fun. Not long after, the 8 pavilion masters of the Celestial Immortal Pavilion came looking for him. Brother Nameless, we've already prepared a few measures. We'd like to hear your opinion. If you think they're feasible, we'll let the academies take action, He Xing said. First of all, we have to investigate all the entrances to the underworld within the Azure continent. After that, we have to dispatch a large number of troops to guard them, set up a formation, and closely monitor them. Secondly, organize the various academies of the Azure continent and prepare for battle. In addition, we will send a few small teams to enter the Netherworld realm to gather information. Don't we have a few captives? We plan to start from them. Lastly, we have already applied to hold a meeting at the headquarters to make this matter public. We will discuss countermeasures together before deciding on the next step. Brother Nameless, what else do you think needs to be added? Lu Chen said, that's all we can do for now. By the way, has Xingyuan continent been notified? Brother Nameless, don't worry. Zhongxingu has already replied. They will arrive in 3 days. From their mouths, they seem to already know about this matter and are anxious to contact us. Lu Chen nodded. Regardless of whether Zhongxingu was worried about him or not, they would not be careless about this matter. Oh, by the way, Brother Nameless, when we were interrogating Kumu and the others today, White Demon told us when the Eternal Soul Palace will open, as well as when the army of the dead might attack. Oh, what did he say? He said that the Eternal Soul Palace is already opening, and we can't stop it at all. Once the Eternal Soul Palace opens, the Netherworld realm will attack after it's reorganized. Lu Chen frowned. So soon? Amen, the Pavilion Master said. We have already sent a suicide squad to the army of the dead to verify the information. Once it's confirmed, we will have no more than 4 months. 4 months? Just preparing for war on one continent was already very stressful, not to mention that there were so many continents in the 6th heaven. Time was very tight. Also, he said something about Lady Li Wei. Lu Chen suddenly raised his head. He said that Li Wei is of the heavenly fox race and has a special physique. Moreover, her realm is very high. When the time comes, she will be made into a living yang bag. He also said, Lu Chen's eyes widened as he said anxiously, what else did he say? He's trying to provoke you. He wants you to save her. When the time comes, the 4 Ghost Kings will easily kill you. Lu Chen narrowed his eyes. Li Wei. He Xing saw that Lu Chen was agitated and hurriedly said, Brother Nameless, don't worry. The Suicide Squad will also investigate Li Wei's situation. If what White Demon said is true, then Lady Li Wei's life is not in danger for now. That's right, Brother Nameless. I suspect that they will deliberately use Lady Li Wei as bait to lure you to save her. The Eternal Soul Palace has already opened, and the 4 Ghost Kings have returned. The Netherworld realm cannot act recklessly at this time. Lu Chen also understood this possibility, but when he thought of Li Wei falling into the army of the dead's hands, Lu Chen felt like a knife was being twisted in his heart. Suddenly, Lu Chen raised his head and looked at everyone. Excuse me, do you know of any extremely dangerous places in the Azure continent? Extremely dangerous places? They looked at each other. Brother Nameless, if it's an extremely dangerous place, then it's naturally extremely dangerous. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to take the risk and explore now? I must save Li Wei as soon as possible, Lu Chen said with certainty. If you know, please tell Nameless. The few of them hesitated for a moment. Finally, the Pavilion Master of the Sky Veil Pavilion said, since Brother John Doe has already decided, then there are 2 extremely dangerous places in the Qingzhou mainland that almost no one has explored. One is located in the depths of the mountains in the north. It's called the Blood Cave. It's said that there are 10,000-year-old blood essences in the Blood Cave. Once you get close, your blood essence will be sucked dry. The other is in the extreme cold of the South Pole. We don't know what exactly is there, but it's close to the South Pole. It's bone-piercing cold. Even the 7 or 8-star Theo the Great would find it hard to bear. The closer to the center, the colder it gets. Lu Chan frowned. He didn't have time to explore all the areas. It would be best if he could find the planet crystal in one go. Of these two places, the blood cave had 10,000-year-old blood essences. Regardless of whether it was true or not, there was a certain probability that someone had seen demonic creatures in the blood cave. However, no one knew what was in the extreme cold of the South Pole. In comparison, it was obvious that the South Pole was more likely to have a planet crystal. If there's no planet crystal in the extreme cold, then I'll go to the blood cave. Lu Chun had already decided to go to the extreme cold of the South Pole first. Later, Yi Fan and the others returned. Lu Chun called Yi Fan and the others into the house. In 2 days, the people from Zhongxingu will come to the Azure Continent. You guys will follow them back to the Demonic Academy. What about you, Dean? Xiao Zhan asked immediately. I want to go somewhere else. I must save Li Wei. Dean, you need someone to take care of you. We'll go with you. Chu Tian said. Lu Chun shook his head. From the information we've received so far, I predict that it'll be very difficult to completely stop the army of the Dead's invasion. The Cliff of Reflection in the Demonic Academy has a passage to the underworld. You guys must go back and help guard the academy. Once the war breaks out, I'll rush back as soon as possible. You guys must let the academy's disciples cultivate harder and help Old High and Old E set up defenses. Chapter 1043. After settling down Yi Fan and the others, Lu Chun set off for the Antarctic. Although the green continent was fragmented, the sea was still relatively safe. It was said that the Celestial Fortress had once organized a sea purge to eliminate all the powerful magical beasts in the sea. There were many commercial ships between the various scattered continents. If Lu Chun didn't need a mount, he could just take a merchant ship. There should be some super strong people in the Celestial Fortress who haven't shown themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to purge the sea. Lu Chun thought. He paid 2,000 spirit stones and boarded a ship to the Antarctic. He could use the time on the ship to recover his strength and merge with his soul for a while. There were more than 200 people on the ship. They were all outer disciples of the Dark North Academy. Some were doing school missions, while others were working to earn money. Their ranks weren't too high. Most of them were at the Earth Cultivation realm. Lu Chen's rank aroused everyone's interest. Many people pointed at him, but Lu Chen didn't care. As the ship moved, Lu Chan found something interesting. The ship's manufacturer was the Daddy's Bounty Group. This name was really a bit strange. On the night they boarded the ship, the crew caught a ghost head fish. Lu Chen happened to know how to cook, so he helped the crew cook a big meal. The crew was used to the half-hearted meals on the ship. When they suddenly had such a big meal, they immediately put down their previous indifference and crazily fought over it. Lu Chen smiled. No need to fight over it. There's still some time before we reach the Antarctic. If you catch any fish, I can cook it for you. I don't have anything to do anyway. Wow, it's too fresh. This superb cooking coupled with the freshness of the ghost head fish is simply the best in the world. Nameless brother, how many stars are you a master chef? 9 stars, Lu Chan said truthfully. No wonder your cultivation realm isn't high. So you're focused on cooking. That's great. We're in for a treat. Lu Chen smiled and didn't explain further. Perhaps being a chef in the Jiuqian wasn't bad. In these 7 or 8 days, Lu Chan helped cook and the crew quickly became familiar with him. Unknowingly, the ship had already sailed into the Antarctic Sea and was not far from the Antarctic continent. At night, the wind was calm and the waves were calm. The starry sky was dotted with stars, and some snow-covered islands could be seen in the distance. Listening to the sound of the waves and looking up at the vast and clear starry sky, this scene could not help but make one feel relaxed and happy. Lu Chan was chatting with some of the crew members on the deck. Nameless brother, you went to the South Pole to hunt the ice bear monster, right? That thing's fur is indeed a good material for making armor. Many academies are buying the ice bear's fur. But that thing's defense is very high. With your level, don't force yourself to be bigger. Actually, if you don't have anywhere to go, you can stay on the ship. With your craftsmanship, many academies would fight over you. Lu Chen was not going to hunt the ice bear, but he still smiled and said, I'm used to being free, and I don't like to stay in one place. If not for the fact that he was the dean, he would probably still be drifting outside. We'll be arriving at the South Pole tomorrow. We'll be fishing in the nearby waters. Unfortunately, we won't be able to eat the shadow shark's fin made by Nameless Brother. All right, I have a map of the South Pole here. Remember, don't enter this area. The ship's first mate took out a map, opened it, and circled an area with his hand. This is an extremely cold place. It's very dangerous. Just the low temperature, there is enough to freeze Theo the Great to death. The academy instructors told us not to go near it. Lu Chen glanced at the map. There was an area circled in red. The place they couldn't go happened to be the place Lu Chen wanted to go. Thank you, brother. Lu Chen put away the map. No problem, it's just a map. If you have time in the future, come to our Dark North Academy. We'll treat you well. The next afternoon, the ship docked specially for Lu Chen. Everyone watched as Lu Chen disembarked, then returned to the designated area to fish. As soon as he disembarked, Lu Chen felt the bone-piercing cold. Lu Chen opened the map and headed straight for the South Pole. After who knew how long, low growls began to sound in the surroundings. Due to the strong wind, it was impossible to determine where the sound came from. An ice bear? Lu Chen quickly found a rock mass to hide in. Not long after, Lu Chen saw a huge bear monster wandering in the vicinity from a crack in the stone. The bear only had one eye on its head, but there were 3 tufts of bright golden hair on its forehead. It seemed to be a rank 3 advanced exotic beast. Damn, we haven't even entered the South Pole, and we're already encountering a rank 3 advanced exotic beast? Lu Chen couldn't help but be shocked. The bear seemed to have discovered something and refused to leave. In the end, it simply laid down on a huge rock to rest. Lu Chen shook his head. He had already spent several days on this trip, and he wasn't sure if there were any planet crystal cores here. He couldn't keep hiding here and waste time, right? No, I have to charge out. Just as Lu Chen was about to make his move, the bear suddenly sensed something and got up. Not far away, a beautiful figure appeared in his sight. Lu Chen focused his eyes and jumped in fright. Yao He. The newcomer was Phonlai Academy's Yao He. Lu Chen really couldn't imagine why he would meet her here. Yao He had already been discovered by the ice bear. A rank 3 advanced exotic beast was already very strong, and the 2 sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Lu Chen originally planned to help, but to Lu Chen's surprise, Yao He was actually very strong. She killed the ice bear in a dozen minutes. No way, Yao He's also so strong. In Lu Chen's impression, the strength of many academies' deans and vice-deans was only 5 or 6 stars of Theo the Great. However, Phonlai Academy was very strange. Li Wei was a 1-star human king, and Yao He's strength was probably 8 or 9 stars of Theo the Great. Speaking of which, Phonlai Academy wasn't very famous before, but it had risen in recent years and was about to enter the top 10 academies of Xingyuan continent. Moreover, Li Wei had previously said that Phonlai Academy wasn't afraid of the Violet Heavenly Palace. All these signs made Lu Chen realize that he might have to re-evaluate Phonlai's strength. Yao He took the beast core and cut off the ice bear's skin. Then, she walked to the rock where Lu Chen was hiding. Finished watching the show? You can come out now. Lu Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. This woman had already discovered him. He climbed out of the rock, looked at Yao He, and laughed awkwardly. Ha! Dean Yao He's strength is indeed extraordinary. But why are you here? Yao He rolled her eyes at Lu Chen. You ran away before Sister Li Wei was rescued. Naturally, I wanted to see what you were going to do. After all, there are many vile people who say one thing and mean another. If you are such a person, then I will go and rescue Sister Li Wei myself. Lu Chen understood that Yao He had run over to spy on him. Speaking of Li Wei, Lu Chen stopped joking. I will definitely save Li Wei, but I must find a way to relieve my weak physique. Otherwise, my chances of success are not high. Yao He sized up Lu Chen. Seeing that Lu Chun didn't seem to be joking, she finally sighed. Having experienced the battle of the underworld with Lu Chun, this person's character could already be somewhat discerned. Your situation should be caused by forcibly increasing your strength when your physical body is insufficient. To relieve this effect, you must quickly increase the attributes of your physical body. I heard that you're looking for an extremely dangerous place. Fine, I will go with you. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.